Southampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals. This meeting is being held live and also via video conferencing in accordance with the Town Board's enactment of Local Law Number 14 of 2022, adopted on May 24th, 2022. Our next meeting and those following will be held in person here at Town Hall and will also continue to allow for remote participation. So we ask you to continually check the town's website for updates and any new information. If you wish to view tonight's live meeting only, please do not join the Zoom meeting and instead go to the town's website. With that, I'd ask that you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For those of you who are here with us tonight in person, in case of an emergency evacuation, please exit through the rear doors of this room to one of the staircases across the hall and continue downstairs and out through the main entrance. Please do not attempt to use the elevators during an emergency evacuation. In case of a medical emergency, the automated external defibrillator and first aid kit are both located in the hallway on this floor opposite the elevator. Restrooms are located across the hall. We will be starting this meeting with the public hearings. We have applicants and members of the public here with us live and also standing by via Zoom webinar, which is being moderated by CTV. CTV will mute the speakers on Zoom until it is their time to give testimony before the board. Please be patient. If you find that you are having difficulties accessing the hearings, please visit the town clerk's meeting portal and click on the instructions link. Please silence your cell phones and refrain from speaking in the audience to one another in the boardroom as it interferes with our recording equipment. Tonight we have board member Helen Burgess, who will be participating remotely via Zoom, and members Susan Kern and Keith Tuttle, who are absent. A reminder that applicants, agents, and members of the public speaking, other than attorneys, will be sworn in, will state their address for the record, and will offer their testimony as it relates to the application before the board. Before handing in any submissions to the board tonight, please make sure that the documents identify the ZBA application name and tax map number. The application name should also be written on your certified receipts. Unless otherwise stated at the end of each hearing, all of these applications will remain open for written comments for all purposes until a date to be announced after the hearing. Those comments can be addressed to the members of the board and sent via email, mail, and/or dropped off at Town Hall to the Board Secretary, Candace Calvin. With that, I'd ask for a motion that we approve the minutes of our last meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Minutes are approved. And now on to adjournments.
Okay, starting with case number 3, application of 1127 Noyak Path LLC, 4 Windy Hill Lane, Bridgehampton, Suffolk County Tax Map number 900-36-2-16.7. Applicant appeals the decision of the building inspector as provided in Town Code Section 330-165A, appeals on interpretation of zoning law and map, in that the proposed tennis court is located within the required side yard for the principal building. If the board agrees with the building inspector, then applicant requests relief from Town Code Section 330-76D, placement of accessory building structures and uses in all districts, and Section 330-83C, yards, to allow the proposed tennis court to be located within the required minimum and total side yard for the principal building. In addition, applicant requests relief from Town Code Section 330-11, Residence Districts Table of Dimensional Regulations, for an accessory side yard setback of 7.8 feet where 10 feet is required for the proposed tennis court and all other relief necessary.
The board has jurisdiction. You pass that to Adam.
This application will be adjourned to May 18th.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess. Chair votes aye.
Okay, turning to case number 8, application of Michael Gluckman and Leela Budart Gluckman, 38 Cliff Drive, Noyak, Suffolk County Tax Map number 900-9-1-45. This application will be adjourned to July 6th.
Second.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonia?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Case number 10, application of 625 Butter Lane Homestead LLC, Agricultural Reserve, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-51-1-17.7. This application will be adjourned to July 6th.
Second.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonia?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Case number 11, application of SGM Excavating LLC and Max Masonry Supply LLC, 110 and 154 North McGee Street, Tuckahoe, Suffolk County Tax Map Numbers 900-129-2-19.1 and 19.2. This application will be adjourned to July 6th.
Second.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonia?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Case number 12, SGM Excavating LLC, 110 North McGee Street, Tuckahoe, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-129-2-19.2. This application will be adjourned to July 6th.
Second.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonia?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Okay, turning to the decision calendar, the agenda. The following decisions will be adjourned to May 18th. Barbara Rosenthal, Matthew Frank, the Andrea Rothbort 2015 Family Irrevocable Trust, Production Holding LLC, and Lee Skolnick.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
The decision for Dean W. Van Tassel will be adjourned to June 1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, I now make a motion to reopen the application of HB Beach House LLC to accept written submissions.
Second.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonia?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, reopened.
I now make a motion to close with a decision to be rendered later on this evening.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I make a motion to reopen the application of Nicholas Howell and Nicola Welch to accept written submissions.
Second.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonia?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, reopened.
I move to close with a decision to be rendered later on this evening.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I move to reopen the application of 103CO LLC to accept written submissions.
Second.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonia?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
I move to close with a decision to be rendered later on this evening.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, now let's go back to the beginning of the agenda.
Although we're going to
We're gonna
start
start
with
with
the
case
flood
9.
application. Yeah, we're taking one application out of order, which is the application, which is 9 on the agenda, the application of flood and Stephens.
Okay, case number 9, application of Richard J. Flood and Mary Ann Steffens, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-5-4-65. Do I need to read the relief?
No.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for taking this out of order. My name is Karen Pate Murphy. I'm the attorney for the applicant, who's here, Mr. Richard Flood. And the other applicant is Mary Ann Steffens. And anyhow, so we had gone through this, and we were left with one variance that we were concerned about, and that this building was going to be 1.5 feet higher than allowed. And since it's not in a FEMA district, that was something that you don't usually approve.
When we pretty much, we said that we
You
didn't
said
think
never,
there would be
never.
votes for
Okay,
it.
said never, so anyhow.
Okay.
We heard you, so
Okay.
decided to, we came back with a house that's 31.5 feet, I don't know if you want to, you have the plans, 5 feet high.
I think it's 31.15.
30.15, well, we have that.
Okay.
And in order to do this, and to provide the necessary headroom height to comply with New York State building codes for habitable space, we put in habitable space dormers, have been added.
Okay,
So now we have to ask for a pyramid
Okay.
variance.
all right.
So on the west side, it's 2,626 feet and .65 cubic feet. And on the east side is 2,746.64 cubic feet. And again, this is a very small lot. This area was subdivided, I think, what, in the 30s? Long time ago. And there have been decisions in this area
Yep,
that have been given.
yeah,
and-
this is Pine Neck.
High Neck,
Yeah, High
yes.
Neck, yeah.
So I have
Yep.
several variances. I can
Feel free to
go
submit
through
them.
them, or just sit, and they
You
do
can-
have the name and tax map number on
That's
it.
fine,
So
feel free
I'm
to submit them.
I'm very excited
I
about
think,
that.
most of us who are on the board for a while know that.
I got
fo-
stickers on them,
Right.
and so that's the
Yeah.
thing. So anyhow, I don't know if you want me
Take
to
them
go
all.
through them, but,
If you want,
take them all.
briefly, that's fine.
I'll take them all.
Okay.
But I just, want to mention that in that area of the town, in this particular area of
Yeah.
Noyak and Pine Neck, these are very, very small lots, and most people who want to, do a major renovation or to do something, almost anything with their house and their property,
original.
have to get variance relief. That's just the nature of it. And so it depends on the type of the variance relief. Are these all the same?
They're all the same, Katie?
Are these all the same?
Each
Yeah.
one is a
Yeah.
packet
Yeah.
with the
Yeah,
same
so, yeah,
things.
so
No, they were all separate, I'm sorry.
they're all different, they're not all the same.
Oh, give them back.
Each one is a separate application.
Oh, they're not
Yeah.
copies for
I-
the board.
I didn't have a chance to put them
Okay,
in
so we just have one set of copies.
So just
All right.
take the
Give 'em all
top
back.
one and,
Give them all back.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yep, that's okay.
I'm sorry, I wanted to get the stickers on.
That's okay.
Whatever, so anyhow, yeah.
But anyway, so I was just saying for those folks who are here, is that, in Pine Neck, pretty much that's the situation that most people are in who have property in that area. So, on the one hand, they generally need to get, people need to generally get relief. On the other hand, the relief does impact neighbors, because the neighbors, the lots are so small and the neighbors are so close to one another. So, anyway, just wanted to explain that.
Anyhow, I just have one
Yep.
variance I'll mention, and the other
Here.
ones are there. This one I haven't given, but this is one for 4,260 cubic feet, where there was 865 cubic feet on the southwest side and 390 cubic feet on the northwest side. And this was a lot that was approximately 7,500 square feet, because it's just, these lots are so small.
Yep.
And this is just really a fill-in parcel, but it does fit within the character of the neighborhood. And again, we're upgrading the septic
Yep.
and
Yep,
doing
so,
that,
so I appreciate the fact that you revised the application to get rid of the height relief.
Yes.
As far as the pyramid relief goes, it is not a insignificant amount of pyramid relief that
I
is,
understand.
it's, over 5,000 cubic feet, but we have granted similar amounts of pyramid relief to other properties. In the past, so that is a consideration. We'll see what the neighbors have to say
Okay.
about it.
Yes.
But I much prefer granting pyramid relief than granting height relief. So I'll put it that way.
All right, thank you.
Does everybody have a packet?
And, each
Uh,
packet is
Yeah.
one individual.
They're not. Each
Oh, they're
each
packets?
packet is 5 different
Okay, I'm
variances.
sorry.
Does everybody have a packet?
No, we don't.
No.
We just thought that they were
Is
submitted.
that
No, I
the
know, but I
sheet
passed
put
them
in down
to
there?
Bob, so.
I handed them down.
Yep,
Yeah.
I didn't even grab one, I was in the middle of talking.
Yeah. All right, so what?
I think that's what you put down
Okay,
there.
so
all
that's.
Yeah, yeah.
There should be 5.
Okay.
I have
Yeah,
the
5.
original file. I have
Okay.
the original file.
That's
Okay,
right.
there's 5, okay, so that's all pyramid in that area.
I have
Okay.
one, there's another one.
Everybody
Okay,
should
I'm
have
sorry.
one
Yeah.
packet with 5 different variances. Does anybody else
Gotcha,
need
yeah,
one?
that's
So
right
it
on.
was put in the packet, I apologize.
Okay,
But
so
you
I
know,
just,
realize this is
yeah.
a large
yeah,
variance.
so I
but-
just want to ask about ceiling heights. For what, do we know what the ceiling
So I
heights are on
lowered
the
the
floors?
second floor ceiling height to 8 feet.
Okay,
And now I've got 8 feet at the dormer, and there's really nowhere left for me to go.
okay,
So,
Okay, so he did
yeah.
and I think if you look at the house pictorially, it fits. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not a rotten box,
Do you have a new
Yeah.
elevation?
any kind of a mansion at all.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Do you
I
have you
believe-
And I'm
submitted?
hoping that
Have
you'll be
you
able to do what
submitted?
you want with the property with the redesign.
I believe the
I
new,
mean, I started out trying to avoid any variance at all, but between Suffolk County Health Department and some other factors.
Well, I mean,
Oh, I
the
see. Well, I see.
practical way to do that
pyramid
is to build a
sketch.
smaller house.
okay.
Do I need them? No.
Okay,
I'm
so
not
here's
sure.
a full set of plans, and this shows,
Uh-huh.
I did submit,
I believe we did submit
You probably have the 11 by 17.
11 by
Maybe
17.
thank you, Ariel.
So that's probably not, but if you wanted to see what this is,
Careful because of the,
Karen, the microphone is right here.
Microphone.
That's all
You
right.
have to keep it away from that.
okay.
So you can see
Mhm.
the style.
Yeah,
So this is the one.
so it's really the dorm, yeah,
The
without the
dormers.
dormers,
This one
Yeah.
here and
Yeah.
this one here.
Here.
right.
Without those dormers, we'd be back to where we were, except we'd be 2.5 feet lower.
And we're
At the
keeping the,
ridge.
the side yards, the,
What kind of living
Same.
space are the dormers?
I'm sorry?
What kind of living space is represented by the dormers? Bedrooms?
Bedroom,
Two bedrooms,
Okay.
okay.
And how many bedrooms altogether?
4.
Okay.
okay.
And what's the total pyramid?
9.
No, not nine.
No, no.
No.
I wrote down, there was.
There was
No, those are-
2,625.
74?
Those
Yeah.
are old variants, those are other variances.
Okay,
No, it's like five something, right? What was the total?
Yeah,
A
you
little
Yeah.
over 5,000.
You said
What is it?
2625 on one side, right? And
Yes.
27 something.
46 on the other.
Yeah.
2746.
I think she said 4,262, is that right?
No.
No,
No.
that's definitely not right.
I didn't add them up.
5371, I think?
She added them up. What did you come to?
5371, right?
Yes, 5371.
Yeah.
51, yes.
53,
What did you say?
5,371, Helen.
That's quite high.
That's a lot.
on the other hand, in Pine Neck, in this area, it's a problem. It's just a problem. These lots are very small. We have areas of Flanders that are very similar to this.
And
They could make a smaller house.
Well, the house is not that
Granted,
large.
74.
the problem is,
It has 5 bedrooms.
No,
oh,
no,
it's 4,
Four.
but the first floor has to be 14 feet because the water table is like 3 feet.
because you don't want water in the basement.
And in order to meet the New York State Building Code, it had to be raised up a little bit. So it ends up being 14 feet, even though the ceiling height is
The ceiling height on the first floor is 9.
9, even though the
second
ceiling
floor
height
8.
is 9, and the second floor is 8. So these are not, the result of high ceilings, and it's just opening up the dormer.
Well, what do you mean it has to be, it's not in a flood zone, so what do you mean it has to be elevated?
Just because of the building code, that
I don't know.
it
So
is,
you
well,
want your finished first floor at 14.0 if you're in floodplain, which I don't believe we are.
we're not, yeah.
But there's water in the street every day, so we're not in it according to the map. You guys know that what's on the map is one thing, what's reality is another. You don't want to build your house with a finished first floor lower than 14.0.
But what could it be? I mean, that's,
This,
the board typically grants pyramid relief, they grant height variances when you're in flood zones. You're saying you're not in a flood zone, but you're still elevating it, so how much lower could it be?
but we're below the
I don't
32
know
feet,
that answer.
so.
But you have
But you're
the
asking for
pyramid.
pyramid
Pyramid,
relief
right,
based
okay.
upon, and if it's elevated.
Not based upon that, I mean, based upon a number of factors.
It
I don't
is,
understand why it has to be elevated like that.
okay, it has to be, let me see,
I agree with Katie, why your building, which is not in a flood zone.
No, I'm asking.
Well, I think in the Pine Neck area, we have treated the applications a little bit differently for pyramid relief because of the nature of it. But there are properties in Pine Neck that are waterfronts and have flooding, are in a flood zone. So that, this is not. But, I know we've granted variance, pyramid relief to several properties, and we have, decisions on it that were just submitted.
And instead of 9 feet ceiling height, it could be 8 feet ceiling height. I mean, I think these plans could be redone where you would be asking for less pyramid relief. And I think they should be given an opportunity to revise their plans. I mean, that's my view.
Well, I thought when I left here 2 or 3 weeks ago, having conversations with you, that this was the direction to go, that pyramid variance was more acceptable than a ridge height variance of over 32 feet.
Yep.
So I kind of went home and leaned on the architect, time-wise and everything else, that this was pretty much what we were all looking for. I don't know where else to go after this. I mean, you know.
Change the 14 feet.
Hold on, Helen, hold on, Helen. I want to see if there are any neighbors that are opposed to this application, and I want to, hear from other board members.
I'm okay with it.
Let me ask you, what are the sizes of the bedrooms? What are the dimensions of the bedrooms you're talking about?
12 by something.
I want to see if there are any neighbors
Yeah.
who are concerned. So, any other questions of members of the board? Okay. Is there anyone who's in the boardroom this evening who would like to be heard in connection with the application of Flood and Steffens? This is for property located at 188 Noyak Avenue in Sag Harbor. Come on up. Just have to swear you in unless you were previously sworn in.
I was sworn in before.
You were sworn in before, so you need to state your name for the record.
Ed Padine, 182 Noyak Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah, I was here before last two meetings, and we had spoken about the setback for the pool. That was the main question. As far as the dormers, I'm not clear on the changes in the heights, to be honest with you.
Okay.
My question was the privacy screening, which was addressed at the last meeting and was going to be addressed now. That was my only concern. I'm still not clear on the dormer and the heights and everything else, how the
That
changes.
basically, the dormers mean that
It's gonna be
the-
wider.
It's gonna be wider.
It's going to have a different shape
higher.
instead of being higher, right?
Correct.
Is that what it
Instead
is?
of getting height relief, they're getting relief
Width.
from the pyramid line
Right,
of the roof,
Okay.
essentially.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. And you're an adjacent property owner?
I am.
Okay, very good.
I am.
Okay. All right.
Do you have any opinion one way or another with regard to it?
I realize that there are issues and the lots are very, very small. So, I mean, the house is going to be very close to my house. I am concerned, but whatever can be done. I don't want to be a troublesome neighbor either, you know.
Ed, would you like to look at the plans? Have you seen the plans?
I haven't seen the new plans at all.
Okay, and you guys can do that
Yeah.
in the hallway. Okay, we're not gonna.
Okay?
Okay, all right.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Corso.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else in the audience who's here who would like to be heard in connection with the application of Flood and Steffens? Is there anyone who's waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with this application, which again is for property located at 188 Noyak Avenue in Sag Harbor? If you're waiting to be heard on Zoom, this would be the time to let us know by raising your hand.
No, sir.
Okay, all right, so Helen wants the pyramid relief to be less. She thinks it's too much. I'm not sure, but Bob indicated that he's okay with it. I'm okay with it, but I'm not sure you need 4 votes to be
Yeah,
able
so
to
what
get
is
this.
your-
I'd like to understand a little bit more why it's being elevated.
Okay, I would like to, I believe there's some kind of building code reason for that. I just have that, it's a 14-foot elevation at the finished floor, and that it's 3 feet above the water table. So I believe it was done for some,
The bottom of
You want a
the,
survey?
bottom of the footing
I don't think
The
there's a
bottom of the
survey in
has
here.
to be
Footing.
3.0 above the water
That's
table.
all we can.
okay,
You
you're
have the
saying the
survey
footing
somewhere.
has to be
Yeah.
3 feet above the
So
water table.
let
And I
me just go
believe
back
that.
and
Okay.
answer Mr. Leonard's question. The bedrooms are 12 by 14.
14.
So I don't really think that's anything but a child's bedroom. All right, now to go on to the 14.0 elevation. The footing has to be a minimum of, the bottom of the footing has to be a minimum of 3.0 above mean high water. Now, we do the math. So now you add 8 feet to that for the basement ceiling height, and you add almost 1.5 foot for floor beams. And I forgot to add the thickness of the footing and the thickness of the slab. But when you add that all up, you're at 14.0 on the finished first floor height.
So you're designing an 8-foot basement?
Yes.
Okay. I think you're building too big of a house on too small of a lot. And I think that's why you are requiring or requesting so much relief. And some lots are not meant for houses this size. You know, I understand you're driven by the market and that you are a developer and
Well,
But
that's
this
not
is just
really-
too much for my taste.
But, I mean, we have a right to build a house on this. I mean,
Absolutely.
you're saying, you know, oh, this shouldn't be built on, but we're allowed to build a
No,
house.
no, not saying it shouldn't be built on. I'm just saying that
Never said that.
the lot, you're asking for more relief than I'm comfortable in agreeing to.
Well, if I showed the building code regulations, why we had to have it 14 feet for safety, and we talked about the mean high water table, and if you ever get a chance to go down the road that connects to this after a heavy rain, you'll see Circle Point Beach, there's a house that's totally underwater.
I'm very
Yeah,
familiar
yeah,
with the
okay,
area,
okay,
yeah.
good, so you know what, I was a little shocked by that, but this is luckily a little bit higher up.
Yeah,
But,
it certainly is.
anyhow, there's not really, you know, we're keeping the side yards, and the nature of the neighborhood has houses all over. I mean, this is from a 1930s subdivision before there were zoning, and I believe the person that just spoke, he had to get a variance for his house. And
I'd like to know how many houses in that area have 8-foot basements. I mean, I don't know if that information is available, but I wouldn't imagine that there's
Well,
too
to be
many.
honest with you, there's not that many, but knowledge today is different than knowledge then, so
True.
and back then, everybody was like, I'm just gonna build myself a summer bungalow. So if it was on a crawl space, it was just like, I need space to get to shut the water on, shut the water off, but obviously lifestyles have changed.
But I'm just wondering, since we're here and we're trying to get this done, do you need a basement? I mean, if you didn't have the basement, would you still have to have that 14 feet?
I would want that 14 feet whether there's a basement or not, because I don't need the water, the tidal water when look, we had Hurricane Sandy. You know what happened.
Yes.
I'm not gonna build something that's gonna jeopardize what's gonna happen for the next hurricane. Hopefully, God is
And-
good to us and we don't get a hurricane for 50 years like Sandy.
And this house is
But-
gonna be totally electric.
Totally electric, and
So
there's
it's-
gonna be utilities in the basement.
Okay, so could there be a crawl space for that? I mean, that, because the height, the 14 feet height is not related to the basement. It's related to
So
the
we
footings.
We have to stop calling it a height and start calling it an elevation, all right? Because
What is
it's
it
not
called?
really, it's not really 14 foot high. We're starting out at 3.0 above the mean high water line. So when we get to elevation 14.0, that would be 11 feet, not 14 foot height. So yes, the basement ceiling is 8 foot high, and most basement ceilings these days are 9 foot high because most people finish their basements. I don't anticipate this basement ever getting finished, but you have utilities down there.
Okay.
Okay.
So I just want to mention, I'm not exactly sure whether there are 4 votes to approve this, at least as of right now, that it does not appear that way, but there are 2 board members who aren't here who will listen to the tape, I suspect, watch on the recording of this hearing, and I'm not exactly sure where they're going to be. So you could leave the application the way it is and find out, you know, when it's getting close to a decision, whether there are 4 votes or not. You could just see what happens, or you could see if you could reduce some of the pyramid relief. It's your call.
Well, I don't know where I would go with the pyramid because I need, New York state law is minimum 7 foot 6 inches on ceiling height. And right now I have 8. So yes, I could lose 6 inches. That's a half a foot. So if we're talking volume, we're talking a half a foot times 30 foot long, we're talking 15 feet on either side, a total of 30 feet. If that makes everybody happy, I'll do that. But 30 feet is a pretty small amount out of what we've got right now. And I can't go lower than that.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Of course.
Yes.
In terms of how to make this house work, so I could be in favor of it, I have some thoughts about maybe, we don't have a basement. So I don't know, the absolute necessity of the basement, but if there was no basement, there'd be less encroachment. So maybe that's something you might consider. And I don't know how the other board members feel about the basement.
Well, I mean, if there was a lot of things, but
Well-
I'm not gonna build a house without
Well,
a
But it's
basement.
coming to us for that reason, and some of us feel that this might be too large a house for this space. And one of the ways to make it a little bit smaller is to eliminate the basement, because there are houses that don't have a basement.
So would you vote for it if the basement was eliminated?
Then you have to tell me what the encroachment's going to be.
It's gonna, is the
I would
pyramid,
be much more happy with it.
what, is the pyramid relief gonna change if the basement isn't there?
No,
I don't think so.
no, yeah, it's not gonna
Still gonna have
change.
the same elevator, same.
Yeah, I was just looking.
How could it not change if there's no basement? Because the basement's got a, he said the basement's got a like 8-foot ceiling.
Well, no, because
And he
they,
said if you reduced it to 7.6, it would be reduced.
We're
the
a little
pyramid.
But it's
hobbled
not-
right now because we
yes.
haven't seen these plans.
why haven't you seen
No,
them?
you've had the plans. I think Karen submitted, unless those are new.
Those are
No.
new.
They were 11 by
They-
17, weren't they
They're in
submitted?
the middle.
Yeah.
They
And the
are
submittals were
submitted.
handed
11 by-
down at
Which
5:45.
we just received today.
At 5:45?
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
But they were
Right,
submitted.
right.
They were submitted a couple of days ago. I wasn't in the office, but they were here. a couple
Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
so we just received these plans when we sat down at our meeting at 10 to 6 tonight. So
Okay,
haven't had the chance to look at
I
them
understand, yeah.
and absorb them. I'm not gonna try to redesign your house for you,
Exactly.
but
I would suggest we adjourn until we have all the board members, and maybe get a better idea, we can look at
Yeah.
the plans. We'll hold it over, if that makes sense, Adam.
Yeah, I'm fine
We
with that.
have two people
Okay.
missing tonight, you may have the 4 votes, once we look at everything. I'm okay with it, but
But it would be persuasive, Karen, if you can get a letter from the building department or a builder or an architect that says what you're saying, that the building code requires it to be that high. I don't think this board has ever heard that.
No,
Usually
no,
it's
no.
in
Okay,
re-
so let's be clear. Building code requires that the footing, the bottom of the footing be 3.0 above mean high water.
Uh-huh.
The building code does not require in this area that the finished first floor be at 14.0.
Right, well, that's what I was asking.
But
What
common
elevation does it
sense-
require? No, what elevation does the building code require?
I'm sorry.
What elevation
What
does the
elevation?
building code require?
If it
3
wasn't
feet above
14
what
feet.
elevation?
It would
I
bring
can't-
everything
I
down.
cannot answer that question.
Okay, so
I
we'll
don't
have
know.
to
But that would
find
be
that out. We'll have
helpful.
to find that out.
But what's gonna happen is that you're not gonna get a basement, you're gonna get, or you're gonna get a separate basement, or.
All right, but the
you're gonna get
basement
a
is
but-
not
but-
affecting the
But what
pyramid.
Katie's saying is that she believes the pyramid will be reduced if there isn't a basement.
I just assumed it was, because he said if you reduce the
Well-
ceiling height, it would reduce the pyramid.
Well, if we reduce the 14 feet.
I'll give you
Right.
that answer.
I
in-
understand that. I understand. I'm
minutes.
I'm sorry, I understand. Well, I appreciate us putting on first. And I'm sorry you got it, we did ask for a month,
Yep.
and so you didn't
Yep.
have much time.
Okay.
We'll go back and look at this, and then I guess a meeting where everybody's buddies are gonna be here.
Okay.
And so what would that, what, do you know, Candace, if, like, when's the next?
Where we have time, we don't, I'm not
Well,
even sure.
5/18 is open.
Okay.
Okay,
5/18
I
is-
won't be here on 5/18.
That's true, I can see your email.
Yes, I'm sorry, I won't be here on 5/18,
The
so.
next one after that is
Six.
June 1st. and
first, haven't
That's
had-
the
June-
amount of time you can normally district.
So June 1st, and that will give us more time to look at this, and give everybody more time.
Yeah, maybe bring the architect who can answer most of these questions.
Okay.
ultimately, my sense is you're asking to build too large of a house at too high of an elevation on too small of a lot. And I understand your request, and it makes perfect sense in this world and in this real estate market. But it's just too much relief for my comfort level.
Okay, well,
So
thank
you definitely have two people who are clearly
Against it.
opposed.
I'm not committing to anything at this moment.
Yep,
That's okay.
Yep.
That-
And-
I don't know, is
and-
it better than
Bob,
no?
Bob and I are okay with it. The question is, where,
Keith, Susan.
whether you end up with 4 votes. Or if, based on reviewing of the plans and the information
We
that we
can
get from
adjust it a
that,
little
that
bit.
changes the people's point of view.
Okay, I
Was this
appreciate
subject to a
it.
wetlands permit from the conservation board?
I'm asking you, Karen, was this subject to a wetland permit?
No.
No, okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to make sure.
I was like, wait a minute, what board am I at?
Hello.
All right, so,
What board
so
am I
Susan,
now?
so
Sorry.
Susan has the lead on this one. She's not here this evening. So on her behalf, I'll move to hold the application of Flood and Stefan's open for all purposes
Till
until our
6/1.
June 1st meeting.
Second.
Well, thank you for letting us go
Can I
first.
ask
I
a
appreciate that. Yes.
Is there any middle ground on this? Like, if I don't, I'd like to keep the 14.0 because I don't need a flooding problem. If I find a way to lower the requested pyramid variance, or,
They're open to
are
that.
we open to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
If you speak with your architect and look at the code sections and come back with some ideas as to what you would like to do, that would reduce the amount of pyramid relief requested.
And that may change, how people are receive the application
Yeah,
the board.
absolutely.
the
I
application.
appreciate it. It's a difficult, because it's a very old
Yeah,
area of
yeah.
town. So,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank
you.
Okay, who was the
Thank you.
second on the?
All right, and thank you
Was
for,
my-
Very good.
Okay, all right.
Here early.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Put this out.
I,
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Okay.
Chair votes aye. Thank you both for being here. Have a good rest of your night.
Beginning?
Okay, let's continue to the beginning of the agenda. Application number 1, Mark M. H. Mandel and Jennifer A. Mandel, Suffolk County Tax Map number, 474 Noyak Path, Suffolk County Tax Map number 900-66-1-2.9. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the Town Code for proposed tennis court. 1. Section 330-11 Residence Districts Table of Dimensional Regulations for an accessory front yard setback of 30 feet where 90 feet is required. 2. Section 330-76D Placement of accessory building structures and uses in all districts. And Section 330-83C Yards to allow the tennis court to be located within the required front yard. And 3. Section 330-67C, Protection of Natural Vegetation, for a proposed clearance of 71.5%, where a maximum of 25% is permitted, and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction.
Good evening.
Good evening. Christopher Kelly, Toomey Latham Shea, Kelly Dubin and Corderaro for the applicants Mark and Jennifer Mandel. I just handed up a photograph that maybe Katie can pass
Yep.
down for the aerial, just from the GIS system. So this property
And
is
the
a,
originals? That goes to
Sorry, we're
like,
just passing them down. We're listening to you.
these are the copies.
the property is a 96,311 square foot parcel, 2.21 acres. It's a flag lot in the CR 80 zone. It's in the agriculture overlay district and the aquifer protection overlay district. It was 100% cleared at one time previously. You probably remember when this was all farmland up there. The applicant's proposing a tennis court in the front yard, and this board has given that relief before, particularly on flag lots. I mean, the policy behind not allowing accessory structures in the front yard is basically designed to keep things off of the road. This, because it's a flag lot, doesn't have that same policy consideration. And in fact, there are, as you can see from the photograph I've submitted, numerous tennis courts in the neighborhood. There's actually 5 of them, at least one of which has a tennis court closer to the road, but that's technically in somebody's backyard. We received a couple of calls before we came here tonight, and the applicant's committed to reducing whatever impact any way he can, but he was happy to sink this tennis court and landscape it as a benefit to the neighbors. I've submitted a memorandum of law. You should have it that we prepared earlier this week and submitted, which addresses the criteria for entitlement to an area variance, and the area variance is shown. I'll just review them quickly. There's no undesirable, won't be any undesirable change in the neighborhood or the district. As mentioned, it's consistent with the neighborhood that there's these tennis courts throughout the neighborhood on numerous properties immediately adjacent and nearby, many of which are, or most, if not all, are not sunken, the way applicant will propose to do it. And this tennis court would not be visible from the street. The question, probably the biggest question here is whether the applicant could actually put it in the rear yard. And although we probably could, there's reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. You'd be closer to wetlands. And we've seen from a DEC map that there are wetlands on this property farther to the north that the tennis court would be closer to. In each instance, you'll be taking out some vegetation, but because of the configuration of the lot and the existing locations of the existing structures, the applicant would hope to put it in the proposed area, which is technically the front yard, in this flag lot. This board has previously granted variances, and we've attached copies of those decisions in our memorandum of law, where it has granted approval for tennis courts in front yards on flag lots, and particularly even smaller setbacks. And one is just 5 feet and one is just 12 feet from the property line, which is technically the front lot line. Here, we're talking about a 30-foot setback, which is consistent with the accessory structure setback for side and rear yards. So if this was considered the rear yard, that would be, no relief would be necessary. Also, because of the clearing, because this lot was previously 100% cleared, according to the building inspector, we're entitled to, I believe it's 62.4%, and we're asking for slightly over 71%. I think those are the numbers. 62%, yes, and we're asking for 71.5% in terms of total clearing. And the stuff that's being cleared is stuff that's only grown there since 1984, when this was a farm field.
Did you find any like variances where this board has varied the clearing? Because typically they don't. Typically that's like a planning board function.
Yep.
Did you find anything like that?
No, but we were, in terms of what the building inspector told us, at first he originally told us that we were grandfathered because it had been completely cleared.
Right.
And then he said, oh, there's this law that says if it grew in
Yeah, if it
for 20
revegetates,
years,
yeah.
revegetates naturally, then, and I think that the bulk, a lot of this vegetation is actually ornamental. There's some that's natural that grew back in, but there's other stuff that's landscape.
Yep. So I definitely would like Anthony from the planning department to give us his feedback on this.
The applicant got the benefit of a pre-existing, I was involved with this and went back to the building inspector twice, and they got the pre-existing determination of 62 point whatever %, where they're allowed 25%. It was a farm field, but the code says it reverts, and there's a lot of woods in the area. The mechanism for getting any additional clearing is laid out in the code under site disturbance that could be submitted to the planning board. The planning board could first of all, the planning board has to, first of all, no one's supposed to clear any properties for a building permit in APOD unless the planning board has given a site disturbance approval. Then there's the issue of people asking for more and all the rest of it, but the mechanism is the planning board. I could tell you, because it looks like this plan here says proposed additional 8,000 square feet of clearing. I know it's not the greatest vegetation I said it's been, but it would have to go to planning to get approval for the additional clearing. And the planning board, this is not gonna, I mean, you'd have to speak to them, but to go from an allowable 68%, where 25% is allowed, to go any higher than that is gonna be an issue. Because we do these regularly. People come in all the time to get additional clearing for a tennis court and try to revegetate in exchange for that. The planning board doesn't particularly like approving those. And in this case, they're already at 68% of the property. 62% of the property where 25 is permitted. I just don't, this board has never granted a clearing variance. So I would argue that the mechanism for dealing with that is with the planning board. And I got, as a staff member, I have an issue with the clearing.
It's in certainly this,
330.
yeah, I mean, the board
has the power to do it.
The board does have the power to do it. I just asked if you'd ever seen it, because we typically don't. Typically, they go to.
But as you can see from the aerials here, the GIS, the neighboring lots are 100% cleared. The one on the road, the one immediately, all three of those lots are 100% cleared. We happen to let some of the vegetation grow back, and so we're getting penalized for that. if we don't.
And you're not gonna penalize, the
Well,
code
we don't have
specifically
the
says
same-
if it reverts back for a period of 20 years. It was a period of 20 years, Mr. Kelly. It wasn't, you know what I mean, for 20 years,
Yeah.
the property's been reverted.
But in terms of, this board is required to consider the character of the neighborhood and impact on that, and what we have here is adjacent lots that are 100% cleared.
There used to be farm fields there, but we have competed, we also have the APOD regulations, which affect this area. The reality is that we want a lot of these areas to revegetate.
So
and
they're
protect the
ag, this is
groundwater.
ag district too. How do you justify the fact that you're in the agricultural reserve area, agricultural overlay district and the aquifer protection overlay district? They're directly,
They are, but because the code says if a property could revert over a period of time, I would argue that the revegetation takes precedent. If a property revegetates 100%.
wait, so why does it take
hold on a
precedence
second,
over
let me finish.
agricultural?
If the property, okay, revegetates for a period, okay, a property that's farm field and it becomes 100% vegetated, they're subject to whatever percentage. They couldn't go back to the planning board and say, I want 100% clearing. It doesn't work that way. I think that once it revegetates, the idea is that the preference would be to get more vegetation to protect the groundwater. I mean, that's just the planning consideration there.
So my question is, does the planning board, because I thought I heard that when you commented, have the authority to be able to grant the lot clearance that the applicant is looking for here?
They have that ability. I would
It-
tell you that
it's
anybody who's ever asked for more clearing than what the code allows,
Yeah.
planning board's required that they transfer development rights
Yeah,
to do
that,
so.
the town code, I mean, because this section, I mean, yes, it is in chapter 330, which is the zoning section, but it's also in Article 13, which is the Aquifer Protection Overlay District, and section 69.2 says the provisions of this article may only be modified by the planning board after due consideration is given to a site disturbance plan, blah, blah, blah. So it's, I mean, that is inconsistent with what we know, which is the ZBA can vary any section of 330, and that's why it is appropriately before us, but it also does have this language, which is why I think you never see it.
Okay.
Because it does say it should be done, it may only be modified by the planning board, so, you know, I mean,
Okay. And have we heard from the planning board?
no, we don't refer we wouldn't
I
have
would- I-
referred
I
this to
wouldn't-
the
I wouldn't
planning
think
board.
so, yeah.
Normally we get this offer, we have dozens of them that
Right,
we do right
right,
now, so.
right.
Is there any area that it could go that's already been disturbed?
The problem is, for the reasons we talked about, you're gonna end up being closer to wetlands. You're gonna still disturb some of that vegetation in the rear of the lot.
When you say closer to wetlands, how close?
Subject to wetlands, like would you have to get a wetlands permit?
No, it wouldn't be, it
Okay,
would-
so
wouldn't-
it's-
it would- you would still maintain your setback.
So it's possible to put the tennis court in the rear yard and avoid the relief of having a tennis court in the front yard?
Would any relief be needed?
I believe some relief would still be needed. but I'd
Do you
to
have an
double
idea
check.
of the
For
amount of
Maybe
relief that would
rear
be
yard
needed?
coverage.
For lot coverage, yeah.
Right, it's gonna be rear yard lot coverage.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there today, and I don't know if that vegetation is ornamental. It looked very natural to me, and it looked dense.
Yeah, and I don't recall us doing this before. It doesn't mean we can't do it, but I don't recall us doing this before, granting relief for lot clearance. And I can just imagine, I don't know, a few other folks might be appearing before us asking for this relief for forever.
Oh, no,
But,
listen,
Katie,
to-
do you think
Yeah.
the planning board can do it without this board's acting? Because it's-
Absolutely. I mean,
because-
that's what that section says. That's
but
why
it
I read it.
says, but the zoning board is delegated the power to vary provisions of 330.
Oh, sure, but the planning board can too. I mean, they grant variances for parking during their subdivisions. I mean, they both, you know,
But what would the criteria be then?
for the planning board, it's, for
But-
the planning board, it's probably.
No, but you're varying something that's in the zoning code, is it subject to the dimensional requirements, the dimensional criteria for variance? An
When the
area
planning
variance?
board varies it?
Yeah,
I think that when the planning board varies it, they have their own consideration. I mean, they're not, the planning board is not acting like the zoning board. They're acting pursuant to the authority that the town board has given them in this section. And it makes me a little bit
I would say
nervous
go
to
back
have
to
this
planning.
board
Yes.
vary it, because, I mean, even though they have the authority, it makes me nervous to have this board vary it where they never have, where it's never come before them, when the town code 69.2 really articulates that it should be the planning board, and where there's a possibility that you could, you know, you could comply. I mean, certainly the board hasn't even mentioned to you that they typically look at tennis courts that are 55 by 110, and yours is 60 by 120.
Well, that wouldn't work either.
But that would reduce your rear yard coverage, or that would reduce your
I think that the
clearing.
applicant would be fine with that, 55 by 110.
Well, I'm just saying that's another way to reduce.
Yeah, and that's part of the issues that we're dealing with. I mean, the tennis court being in the front yard, you're correct, that in flag lots, we have often granted that relief. So that's not, in my view, a stretch. The lot clearance, now, I don't want to speak for the entire board, but my inclination is for you to go to the planning board about that, to see whether they're inclined to grant that relief as opposed to us granting that relief. It sounds to me from Anthony that they probably won't be, but.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I
But
can't
we-
speak for the planning board, just from my
Right.
experience with dealing with them. Like I said, we deal with hundreds of these over the course of a few years. I mean, I'm looking at the back here, at the very least, I mean, why can't you at least then, and I can't, again, I don't want to speak for the planning board, but a consideration is, why are you asking for more percentage? Show an area of cleared area that you're gonna revegetate to keep it in compliance with the already 62.4% that you're allowed.
Right.
That may be some, again, I can't say that that will satisfy the planning board,
Let them decide that.
but let them,
Yeah.
that's something that we could look at, that wasn't considered here.
And
so.
then if it turns out, based on whatever happens with the planning board, they decline you, then you come back to us and we'd have to figure out what to do. I mean, but you're still gonna need to come back to us anyway, you're still gonna have
Right.
two boards you're gonna be dealing with. So I think that's the next step, but I also wanna see if there's anyone here amongst the neighbors that are, that are
Have you
concerned
heard
about the
anything from the
application.
neighbor on New Ground Lane that would be closest to the tennis court?
Yes, I think that they have counsel here. I think Jeff Bragman's here for them.
Okay, very good.
And we heard from her and talked to her, and then we heard she was getting counsel.
Okay, very good. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Kelly?
So,
Yes.
depending on the next presentation, the procedure here would be to submit to the planning board, and then you'll hold this in abeyance pending
Correct.
review
Correct.
by the planning board?
Yeah.
Unless you could find like a location that would conform to the clearing.
Clearing.
The board
To-
sounds
to-
like they're fine with 55 by 110, sounds like they're fine with it being in the front yard.
Right,
Yeah, but there's not, either way, in the front yard, you'd have to clear.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't say I'm fine with it in the front yard in this situation. I'd prefer to see it in the cleared area of the rear yard.
If
I
we
know
can do
we-
it, I prefer it in the rear yard if you can put it in the rear yard.
Yeah.
Sure.
I would agree with
I know
that.
we have granted front yard tennis courts, but to my recollection, they're typically when they're on roads or not in close proximity to neighbors, and this is really close proximity to two neighbors. So,
Yeah, but if you look at you can see that the neighbors' tennis courts are closer to other neighbors than ours would be to theirs, except in the case of the Cohen. Like you see we got the tennis court and the house on Noyak Path is closer to this house here than ours would be to that. And you've got this one that's in the front yard, that's on the road.
right, okay.
In any case, I know Mr. Bragman's waiting to be heard as well, but I'm
Thank you.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
And you
Any
can
other-
come back if you like after, right,
Yeah,
Thank you.
of course. Yeah.
to respond
Okay. Jeff,
today.
thank you.
Adam, may I say something?
Sure.
I agree with you, and I also agree with Mike.
We feel so validated.
Thanks, Helen.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. I'm Jeff Bragman, and I represent the neighbor immediately to the west at 3 New Ground Lane. I'm going to,
At where, I'm sorry?
3 New Ground Lane is her
Okay,
address.
got it.
And I also have been in contact with the neighbor who is directly to the south of the property, Beverly Morris. But I'm going to refrain from getting into the argument because it sounds like the next step is the planning board. And I was going to raise that because my understanding is that it has always been the town policy that it's the planning board, not your board. That's why you haven't seen these variances.
Right.
So I have a whole bunch of material to show you, but I'm sure you'll be disappointed not to have to look at it tonight. We'll save it for another day.
The more the better. Feel free to submit anything.
We'll hold off on our argument, and I'll just join Mr. Kelly at the planning board.
Okay, very
Thank you
good.
very much.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who's here in the boardroom who would like to be heard in connection with this application, with the application of Mandel for property located at 474 Noyak Path in Watermill? Okay, well, I just want to ask, so I know we have at least one person online, so I just want to ask, is there anyone from the public who's waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with this application? And I understand we have you here.
I just want to say one thing.
Okay,
that
hold
the vegetation that's
on.
currently-
I have to swear you in. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Jennifer Mandel,
Yeah, and your address?
474 Noyak Path.
Okay,
She's the
and do you
applicant.
swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so if you can now tell us your comments, please.
No, I just wanted to mention that the vegetation that you were referring to is 80% Russian olives, and the rest are ornamental landscaping that we planted. And Russian olives are not native to the East End, so they're
Right.
like a very invasive
Right,
plant, which is not native to Long Island.
right.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Okay, so pretty much what you wanted to tell us?
Yeah, just that it's not, that it's not really, vegetated like naturally.
Okay, very good. Okay.
Can I just say something to that point,
Sure.
if I may? To that point then, that's information that should go to the planning board. Again, what is in that area, and again, I would also highly suggest that they look at revegetating, some kind of exchange. If in fact, I haven't been out there, so I don't know about the nature of the vegetation and where the tennis court is proposed to go at this point. But, again, that's kind of information the planning board should have so we can assess the whole thing.
Okay, all right. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who's waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with this application? Again, it's for 474 Noyak Path in Watermill. If you're waiting to be heard on Zoom, this will be the time to let us know by raising your hand.
No hands.
No hands. Okay, so then the only other question I have, Chris, is when you'd like the time period for us to hold this over, because you would have to make an application to the planning board. And just want to get you on a microphone, so if you can go either to the podium or the,
So given the schedule, I think this has to be adjourned without date, right? Because we need to submit to the planning board and,
well, we have to have a date, so even if it's a control date.
a control date, so.
Yeah, yeah.
What dates do you have?
How long are we getting the planning?
Well, you're gonna call me, I'm off tomorrow, but call me next week.
Okay.
I'll have you come in, I'll sit down with you. Let's go right now to the,
July?
July 2nd meeting.
The July 6th?
6th.
Or the 20th?
second meeting in July would be better.
Which is
No,
July
hold on,
20th.
Chris looked like one.
I'm gonna be away the first week in July, that's
Oh,
all.
okay, okay.
Okay,
So July 20th.
July
then.
20th?
July 20th.
July 20th.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you
Mike?
very much.
No problem, thank you.
Okay,
Mike?
Thanks, we will adjourn this meeting, adjourn this application to the July 20th meeting.
Second.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, thank you all for being here.
Okay, number 2 on the calendar, Lemley Family Irrevocable Trust, 270 Long Neck Boulevard. Where's this? Flanders. Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-66-1-2.9. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the Town Code for proposed, Applicant requests relief from Town Code Section 330-11, Residence District's Table of Dimensional Regulations for a principal front yard setback from 30 feet to 24 feet for a front covered porch on a proposed new one-family dwelling on a non-conforming lot, and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction,
Sure.
and I'm sure that Mr. Mercier will tell you this.
That's what it was.
But this should have been advertised as a minor variance.
Right, I was gonna get into the.
I said, I'm sure you're gonna tell him, but I
Yep,
figured I
yep,
would tell
yep,
you.
yep,
I
yep,
confirmed
yep,
that with the
yep.
building.
Okay, but
All right,
it
for the
wasn't, so
applicant.
here we are.
For the applicant, Robert Marcinsick, O'Shea Marcinsick, and Bruin, 250 North Sea Road, Southampton. Good evening. Subject property is located on the east side of Long Neck Boulevard between Pine and Oak Avenues and approximately 3,200 feet north of the intersection of Long Neck Boulevard and Flanders Road in Flanders, shown as lots 4, 5, 6, and 7 on a map entitled Bayview Point, filed in the office of the Suffolk County Clerk on April 13, 1944. Property is comprised of approximately 8,000 square feet, located in an R10 zoning district. It's therefore non-conforming as to size, but has been held in single and separate ownership since prior to October 14, 1957. The requested relief is for a 6-foot front yard variance from 30 feet to 24 feet for a covered porch in connection with the construction of a proposed single-family dwelling on the property. As Katie was saying, the relief sought is only a 20% deviation from the standard and is therefore a minor variance under the zoning code. The application should have been reviewed as minor variance and pursuant to 330-164I, as indicated in the denial sheet which I gave you, which clearly indicates it was a minor variance. And the public hearing should have been waived. However, our application, when it was submitted, had an additional, I think, rear yard variance, which was later determined to be unnecessary. So
Okay.
therefore, only the front
So
yard
that's
remains.
maybe that's how it ended up.
And then it
this
got
way.
sort of,
Yeah.
there was a timing issue where it was noticed as a public hearing.
Okay.
So therefore, we're here,
Here you are.
doing a public
And you love
hearing.
appearing before us anyway.
Yes, I do. I haven't seen you in, a month or so. But as I indicated, it's basically a minor variance, and since it's a minor variance, it's therefore not substantial. That's one of the
Is that
things they have to look
literal or
at in consideration. Pardon me?
Is that literal, or is that a...
Well, I think that
Great argument.
I mean, that's an easy one.
So you got one out of the 5 parts of
All
the
right,
test.
all right. I'm going to also say that it would not cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, nor detriment to any neighboring properties. The proposed residence is in an architectural design and style that is in keeping, and size, in keeping with the character of the existing properties in the neighborhood. Many of the surrounding properties located in close proximity to this, to our property, have similar front yard variances, which they've gotten from this board. Specifically, the adjacent property located immediately to the north, which is 276 Long Neck Boulevard, received the variance for a front yard setback of 14 feet. And as I said, we're asking for basically 24. There are at least 9 properties in close proximity to the subject property that have been granted front yard variances similar to variance that we are granted, that we were asking here tonight. I don't want to get ahead of saying that it's been granted yet, but these are shown in Exhibit B in our exhibit packet, which you guys should have in front of you. Additionally, I would submit that having looked at the area, there are many other properties where the front of the premises appear to have pre-existing non-conforming front yard setbacks. We
Right.
provided an aerial photograph in Exhibit C showing many of the homes in the area, and you could, I think, plainly see that many of them are, as I said, less than 30 feet from the street. Due to these pre-existing nonconformities and the variances that this board has given previously, we submit that our requested relief for the construction of the house will not be out of character with the surrounding neighborhood. That's number 2. Okay.
I'm counting.
The applicant is proposing to construct a modest 1,200 square foot house, 1-story house on a small 8,000 square foot, 100-foot deep lot. The house is not a custom stick-built house, but is actually a prefabricated modular home. The applicant wants the front entry to the house to face Long Neck Boulevard. In order to accomplish this and have its desired residential utility, The interior configuration of the house requires it to be positioned as shown on the survey, and that the proposed front of the house be facing Long Neck Boulevard. The back of the house is also 30 feet from the rear yard property line, so if we pushed it any farther back, we would need a variance for the rear yard. So as situated on the property, a front yard variance is the only way to achieve the desired configuration and positioning of the house on the subject property. We would also submit that it will not have any physical or environmental effects on the neighborhood, simply allow for the construction of a single-family residence with a front porch, which is a customary residential feature on many homes in the neighborhood. The front yard variance requested would allow the property to have the same or similar setbacks as other dwellings in the neighborhood, and we therefore say it will submit that it will have no detrimental effects on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. That's really all I have to say.
Okay.
I have-
Minor variance, we'll see if that, have you heard from any of the neighbors?
Yes, we actually received a phone call, one of the neighbors, just asking about basically style of house, size, and height, actually, I should say.
Okay. We also got a comment from the building department. I'm not sure
Okay.
if you saw that. That was from Arthur Gearhauser,
Yep.
Principal Building Inspector. This is what he wrote. The survey prepared by Floyd Carrington, last dated December 21st, 2021, shall be revised to show the flood zone line and the flood zone designation.
We submitted that.
Okay, and two plans, elevations were not available at the time of the review, and as such, compliance with overall height and pyramid height could not be verified.
Right, we also submitted some plans today, but we might have to make some resubmissions because they didn't have an original stamp on them.
Okay.
But we did submit a survey showing the, which you should have gotten, the flood, the difference in the flood zones. Oh, God.
Okay, well, we got a bunch of those submittals, so it
This
might
is
be.
it.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
Okay.
I don't have one, but you
Okay.
guys should have gotten this. It's the
Yeah.
flood line right there that we have there.
Okay,
See that now. Yeah.
What's
okay.
that?
See that now, yeah.
Rob, what's the date on the survey? So I can make sure I have it.
This is the one with the
Yeah,
flood line.
What's the date in the
What's the
bottom-
revised
bottom
date?
corner?
Uh,
Bottom right corner.
3/13.
That's the last one we have.
Will you have
Yep.
that one? I didn't see that one in my file, that's why I asked.
We'll have it in the correspondence.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll take a look and see.
okay, very good. Okay, minimal relief,
Yep.
but we'll see if there are any neighbors who are concerned.
Yep.
Any other questions from members of the board?
No.
Is there anyone who's here in the boardroom and who'd like to be heard in connection with this application, which is the application of Lemony Family Irrevocable Trust for property located at 270 Long Neck Boulevard in Flanders? Okay, you can now come on up or have a seat at the table. Okay, good evening. I just have to swear you in, unless you're an attorney. So if you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Ken Norcross, 2855 Wasso Avenue, Southhold.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
can I get your last name? Your last name again?
Norcross, Norcross.
Thank you.
Okay, and you indicated your address in Southhold?
Yeah,
Do you
I'm
own-
also property owner to
Yeah.
the property immediately south.
Immediately south, okay, so you're in
Yes,
adjacent property.
264 Long.
Okay,
Total novice at these kind of meetings, but, you know, looks like you guys do this every day.
Every
So I
other
do
Thursday.
have some questions
we don't.
about understanding the application.
okay, and I'm not exactly sure, maybe
Yeah.
that you and Mr. Marcinson can have a conversation about the details of the application. I mean, we're really here
Yeah.
just for a principal front yard setback, 30 feet to 24 feet for a front covered porch.
What is, well, maybe
yeah.
a question to you is, what is considered substantial? Is there, I imagine there's not a real number to that.
Well, the town code defines minor, that's what we were talking
Yeah.
about before. Typically, I think it's 25%. Yeah, so if
We're
you're
asking
asking
20.
for 25% or less of the setbacks, then
Uh-huh.
it's considered minor. And if that's the case, which this is, typically, there's not even a public hearing.
Is
The
the
board-
rear porch no longer part of the application?
No,
No.
they didn't need relief for it because it wasn't covered, I
Correct.
guess, yeah, so it's
So it may
only
be-
just the front porch.
Correct.
So
That
they
was
may
the-
not need relief for it. I don't know whether anything's happening with the rear porch, but it's not requiring variance relief from our board.
Because the application says 26.7%.
Yeah, that's, the applicant had identified that as needing a variance, and then when it went to the building department, the building department said
That
no.
was removed,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be built, it just doesn't need a variance, it complies.
But in general, it's 20% is the
25%.
the boundary, 25%.
Yes.
Okay. Some of the documents mentioned in the application we didn't receive. It says see attached documents, but I don't see any attached documents.
Okay, so there should have been a mailing to you, but I don't know that
Well,
everything that was submitted.
I'm sure he
was
didn't get any of
mailed.
the variances, because we're not required
Yeah,
to.
No.
he just handed up stuff to the board now, so you wouldn't have gotten that, but you should have gotten the survey,
Yes,
the application.
but this is supporting their points. It says see attached documents that support their arguments.
Well, they handed up stuff now.
So do we
So
get a copy
You
of
can
that?
take a look at it tomorrow, you could come in and
It's
take a look at
available,
it,
it will be available in.
They're only required to send you the,
This Monday.
From the final,
Monday,
Monday.
they're only required to send you the
Okay.
survey, the application, and then they come in with more stuff.
Okay, and
Yeah.
is this available online?
No.
No,
These documents, no?
no.
You have to come here
You have to come.
and make an appointment?
Right.
You call
And you
Candace.
could
I'll give you
see,
my card before you go.
Okay,
Yep.
and so I can come and look at the rest of the documents?
Yes.
Yep.
As part of the survey, there's no sense of the vertical at all. So how do I understand the height of this?
I think the ridge is 20 feet.
Yeah, yeah. But what I can tell you is that whatever is going to be happening on the property it has to conform to the zoning code, except for this one slice of relief that they're asking for the principal front yard setback for the front covered porch. So there may be other changes going on in terms of the overall project, but they're not coming to us for variance relief, so it has to conform.
So it's assumed to conform?
Yep,
Well, it has to
It'll
conform.
confirm
If it
to
doesn't,
conform.
if anything else they're looking to do doesn't conform, then they would have to come back to us.
And that includes pyramid law and all
Yep.
of that?
It does,
Uh-huh.
it does.
The front porch plan, does it include stairs? I don't see stairs there.
I would assume,
I would imagine there must be
there
an
must be
entrance
some
somehow.
way of getting to the front porch.
And there's a driveway down the middle of the porch.
Okay.
So that would increase the variance, no? Do stairs
No.
count?
No.
Stairs don't
No.
count.
no, it wouldn't.
The footprint is without the stairs? Okay.
Well, I don't know the footprints without the stairs, but the relief that's being requested is only related to the front covered porch.
Which doesn't have stairs?
I'm looking, I'm not an architect.
Yep, let's take a look. But, I mean, you were, went through the process as to exactly what relief you would need, and this is the relief that you need, which I'm presuming is some kind of way to get into the house, stairs or otherwise,
I would.
a ladder.
Left.
Rope.
Wings.
Yeah,
I don't have any idea.
yeah. Okay, well, I think Candace can follow up with you with these kinds of specifics, and you can also speak with Mr. Marcinsick about it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm addressing the wrong group.
Yeah.
No, this is the group.
No, you're asking a fair question.
Yep. And sometimes the building department can give you a lot of answers to.
And what we're going to do, sir, is we're going to leave this open for 2 additional weeks if you'd like to
Submit
make any
written
written
comments.
submissions or written comments for
Yeah.
our consideration.
And instructions for that are on the website, or?
The comments will go to Candace.
All right, I'll take her card.
Rob, can you just give him a copy of what you just submitted to us? Saves it.
Look at the extra one.
Yeah.
This is what he
If you have extra.
There you go.
Okay.
He does, because we have board members missing.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any other questions or comments?
I don't think so. Thanks.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in connection with this application, which is again for a property located at 270 Long Neck Boulevard in Flanders? Anyone else?
I have someone online.
You do, okay. Okay. We can see you. Hi, but we can't hear you. You're muted.
Got it.
Okay, very good. Just
Okay.
have to swear you in unless you're an attorney. If you can state your name and address to the record, please.
Lorraine Pacelio, 23 Nash Avenue, Flanders, New York.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
How do you spell the last name?
Can you spell your last name for us, please?
It's Pace, P-A-C-E-L-E-O.
Okay. And are you an adjacent property owner, or are you next door?
I'm around the block, around the corner,
But-
at 23 Nash Avenue.
Okay, but you're
I'm
not
about-
next door.
Nope, I'm about 500 feet away,
Okay.
as the bird might fly, but probably less if a bird was really flying.
Okay. Okay, and what would you like to tell us?
Okay, I'm just really happy to see the board push back on large homes being built on these smaller vacant and non-conforming lots that are in my neighborhood. I'm here to object to this application for the same reason. I ask each of you to please hold the line and uphold our building statutes as much as possible. I have seen 3 large new homes built in the past 6 months, changing my neighborhood's character from a small beach cottage community to a neighborhood crowded with homes and less open space. Many front yards are being turned into parking lots with no lawn whatsoever. I continue to allow these larger 3, 4, and 5 bedroom homes to invade my neighborhood. You're destroying my peace and the look and feel of my neighborhood. And is in, definitely out of character with the neighborhood and has detrimental effect on all of our lives. Prior decisions should be disregarded at some point because the safety of Southampton citizens is at stake. There's added pollution, added traffic, cars, and multiple families living in one home, and general overcrowding of the neighborhood.
Okay, well, you're
It's
speaking,
not just one neighborhood,
okay, but
multiple
you're speaking generally, okay? Specifically, when it comes to a principal front yard setback from 30 feet to 24 feet for a front covered porch, when you live 500 feet away, how is that negatively impacting your use of your property?
I'm trying to tell you exactly how it is. I believe I have 3 minutes to tell you my feelings and why I object.
Okay, well, feel free to keep telling us what you'd like to tell us.
Thank you. As an alternative to owners trying to sell their property and the town refusing to grant these variances they are seeking, perhaps send them over to the CPF department because they have plenty of money and are able to buy vacant properties for fair market value. We do not have to continue allowing these homes to be built in our neighborhood. I have objected previously to a first new large home in my neighborhood when it was first being applied to before you. About a name signed on in objection, but that went to deaf ears. So I'm here again. Please listen to my objection and uphold the building code statutes. By not doing so, you also risk the erosion of our town space by allowing multiple large homes, destroying the look and feel of neighborhoods, which also allow larger quantities of people to live in one home, utilizing more town services, disproportionately to the homes that are already here for decades. Lastly, I highly suggest that you add the Zoom meeting ID and password information to the top of every agenda, as I believe Zoom is here to stay, which is a good thing, and will allow easier access and more citizen feedback, which is what I believe everything is all about. Your attention.
Okay, thank you for your
Thank
comments.
you.
Okay, all right, is there anyone else who is waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with this application? Charlie?
No, sir.
No, okay, all right, then Helen, it is yours.
Okay, I
got
came
it
to
here
visit,
now.
I came to visit this property.
Hold on, Helen, looks like we have somebody
got it
else.
Sorry.
Wasn't it the person that just spoke?
It was, but he may be switching to somebody else.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was waiting. One more step.
Okay, we can see you, but we can't hear you.
She's muted.
I know. We need you to unmute, we can't hear
What's
you.
the second?
Yep.
I'm trying to unmute.
Okay, we can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Yes.
So I just have to swear you in. If you can state your name and address, please.
My name is Margaret Hagan. I reside 276 Long Neck Boulevard, north of the property in question.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
That's a tough one.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
She had to think about that. Maybe you lost the audio.
You just lost the audio. Can you hear us?
Hello?
Hello?
We can't hear.
Okay, can you hear us now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, if you can tell us your comments, please.
I just had one question. I saw Mr. Norcross, which is the other neighbor. My concerns were similar. I was down to the town hall to receive, before I received my letter in the mail, and I received the first
Excuse me for a second. Sir, if you'd like to go out in the hallway to speak, please? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah, I received the first survey that was previously dated, which didn't have the elevation lines. And I don't have a problem so much with the front porch and the setbacks, and I realize that's the only thing that you're involved with. And I wanted to ask, should I be dealing with maybe the building department? Because I have questions about the placement of the septic system.
Yeah, well, you can talk to the building department. You can also contact Mr. Marcinsick if you wanted to. You can contact either or both.
Okay. Yeah, I just have some questions on that. It seems to be, it seems odd where the placement is when it's the elevation, is a higher elevation where they have the cesspool, where if they went over on the other side, it would be a lower elevation. I don't know if that has bearing, but it just seemed backwards to me. But that was really all I had. I mean, I don't have a problem with the setback they're requesting. You know, it's basically on the survey. I'm not familiar with what is listed here, ground mats. And it says future expansion, you know, on the survey. So I guess I will speak to the attorney or the building department.
Yes, but otherwise you're okay with the setback for the covered porch?
Yeah,
Okay.
that setback
Wonderful.
is no problem. Again, I'd like to know the height because it mentions on the survey that the parking, the proposed parking is going to be located in the cellar below the home. And I'm very curious because we're very close to the water. They're not digging a cellar up, right? Or are they just building?
You can address those issues with the attorney for the applicant.
And or the building department.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right?
Thank
But
you.
I will also add that other than the relief that's being requested for the covered porch, everything else has to conform to zoning. So we're not granting relief for anything else, so.
No, I'm just curious. I'm not saying it's against the building department. I'm just curious, again, parking cars underneath is a basement. I don't know whether they're digging. It just seemed odd to me being this close to the water. Unless the house was gonna be raised, obviously then, but they're not digging downward.
Okay, I would have that conversation with Mr. Marcinsick and the building department. Okay. All right? And also, I just wanted to verify that you're an adjacent property owner. Are you next door?
276.
Yes, I am.
yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you so much for your comments.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anyone else who's waiting to be heard on Zoom?
No, sir.
Okay, Helen, it's yours.
As I was saying before, I have visited this property on several occasions, and I have absolutely no problem with it. It is very pleasant to see such a modest home that will fit in very nicely with the neighborhood. And thank you, Robert, for excellent presentation. And I am 150% in favor of this application.
Thank you, Helen.
I will close the public hearing. I will keep it open for submittal to May 19th with a decision on June 1st.
Second.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for your comments.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay.
Good seeing you.
Number 4 on the calendar, Eugenio Presta, 626 Dune Road, West Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-391-1-34. Applicant requests relief from Town Code Section 330-84D Pyramid Law for an encroachment in the amount of 12,221 cubic feet for a proposed second story onto an existing one-family dwelling on a non-conforming lot and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction. Can you pass that to John?
Good evening. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Susanna Herman and Consultants, 1319 North Sea Road, Southampton.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Can you tell us about the application?
Sure. First, I have a couple of copies of a revised pyramid drawing. I don't know if you guys got a copy of Art Gerhauser's memo where he requested that we break down the relief to east side and west side.
Yes. Yes.
So I just have a couple of copies of that if you guys want that. It's page 4 of that.
Page 4 of this.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, but does John have that?
No.
Yes, this is the new page 4, John.
Right.
Don't-
okay.
Don't
Yeah.
open it.
Okay, go on.
I mean, that's the whole shebang.
Don't do it. You can open it if you want to, but, you know.
There's
We'll be
no,
looking at something different.
there's
We
only
just
two
don't want to
copies,
mix,
so
you
give them
know,
both to
get
John.
things confused, that's all. There we go.
So wait, do you got?
Those
Yeah,
are the
This
same.
goes.
Those are the same thing, but you want to open that.
You might want
we
to hold
wanna
on to
look at
this
it.
one. and-
Yes, that's the same thing, it just breaks the east and west side.
Yeah, but the total
The
cubic feet is
total-
not changing.
Is not changing, and the reason that we didn't break it between east and west is because it meets in the middle, it's all one volume.
And this is an enormous amount of pyramid relief.
It's
It
enormous.
does-
And
it does
sweet,
seem
so
like
I'm
a
really
lot.
gonna be interested to see.
But what
Okay.
is the breakdown?
Yeah.
Just in
So
case
the
we have neighbors
breakdown-
impacted on one side or
Okay,
the other.
so our total is 12,221 cubic feet requested. That is on the west side, 5,839 cubic feet, and on the east side, 6,292, and plus another 89.7 for the portico.
Pardon me, this is West Hampton, not West Hampton Beach, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So it's
And
not,
West Hampton Dunes either.
it's almost in West Hampton Dunes, but it's
Right.
within town of Southampton,
Almost
so
down
it's,
by the TV
Yeah,
house.
little section,
right.
Yeah.
The lot is only 50 feet wide, and the lot area is 9,749 square feet. It's on the water, it's in a flood zone, but there is an existing house at the site, which is up on pilings. And even though the flood zone is only AE7, requiring the first floor elevation at 9, and that's where your pyramid line is drawn from, is from the elevation 9. The existing house, which is a one-story house up on pilings, is at 14.5 elevation. So we're 5.5 feet higher with the existing house than we're required to be under current FEMA laws, except that we are also in the LIMWA zone, or the limit of moderate wave action, which if this were a new house being constructed, that would mean that it would need to be on pilings, even though it's an AE zone, and it would need to have the floor, the lowest horizontal member at 9. So AE7, but the existing house is at 14.5. So what's proposed is simply to put a second story right on top of that existing first story. The footprint of the existing house is only 1,479 square feet. The second story would be slightly smaller at 1,457 square feet. The ceiling height of the existing house is only 8 feet for that one-story, built in 1973 house. The second story would also only be an 8-foot ceiling. So it's not an excessive house. It's not overly large. All of the other houses in the area are 2-story houses. This is the only 1-story house that I'm aware of in this area. I have photographs, which I'll hand up as well.
Does it matter what's the stamp?
The stamp goes to John.
John.
Stamp goes to the lead. Welcome to the board.
No, I didn't. That was the one I found.
So as you can see, this
Wow.
is.
Sorry.
Gotta stay on your toes again. As you can see, the existing house is very modest in size. The bottom is all breakaway walls. They park below. It's on pilings. The pilings would be shored up. We had the architect and engineers look at the house to make sure that it could sustain a second story. They would do a renovation of what's there, but it's not a demo rebuild. They are simply putting a second story on top of this existing house. So even though the number is high, I don't think it's out of character with the neighborhood. This lot is narrower than many of the lots in the neighborhood, so you do have larger homes, and this would be within the same character. And like I said, the square footage is not excessive. We did get a wetland permit. The house is very close to the wetlands. There's nowhere else to move the house on the property. The house itself is 29.7 feet wide, but it's deep. It's almost 50 feet deep, parallel to the property lines. And I think that's why the pyramid number is so high, because it's only 10 feet and change from the side property lines, and it extends 50 feet from front to back, the existing house. So the appearance from the street is not going to be of something towering over the adjacent properties, because it is a narrow, relatively narrow house.
Have you heard from any of the neighbors?
I haven't directly. I know the homeowner has spoken to at least one of his neighbors. I don't think there's, I don't think there's any objection there. I haven't heard from anyone else.
So my recollection of pyramid relief being granted on lots, or pyramid relief of greater than 10,000 cubic feet of pyramid relief granted by this board is rare. I think that usually some of it has to do with the raising of the house, but also some of it has to do with that. It may be that some of those other applications, and I don't have any one in particular in mind, may not have had adjacent properties next to them that were particularly close. I mean, the impact of pyramid relief is the impact on the neighbors. And it could be that the neighbors are okay with this because maybe they plan on doing the same thing and coming to us for pyramid relief in the same amounts. And it'll go right down the road, right down Dune Road, and it'll keep going.
The only examples I could find of pyramid relief of this magnitude is Noyak.
Yeah.
On
Pine Neck.
Pine Neck, Hampton
Yep.
Road.
Right.
There, I actually have done a couple of pyramid variances in that area of this magnitude. It's similar dimensions of the lots, and the properties are all close together there, and they're all sort of in the same boat, in the same situation. There were multiple variances.
And we will live with that for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. And that doesn't necessarily mean.
On this board, anyway.
On this
Right,
board.
right.
I mean,
And that
we've
doesn't
set a
necessarily mean,
precedent.
because each application stands on its own merits, that there
Correct.
weren't differences between those
Correct.
applications and this one.
Right.
So, well, the arguments can be made that there are similarities, that may be that there are similarities and there may be differences. Nevertheless, I think it's accurate what I indicated, but, the board, and I suspect if we would take a look at those, what occurred in those applications, I suspect those applications were probably pretty heavily scrutinized before it ended up at whatever it was.
Yeah.
But still, it is rare. I mean, over 5,000 is unusual, over 10,000 is rare. Yeah.
A unicorn.
I think what makes this unique is the existing house being there and being retained, and the fact that the existing house is at elevation 14.5. It would be nonsensical to say, oh, well, we'll lower it, because they're existing pilings that they're going to keep, and they're keeping that entire first floor. So our starting point, if you look at the cross-section of the pyramid, our starting point is much higher than it would be if the house were lower. So that
Yeah, the
resulted-
extra feet.
Why do they need an attic?
For ductwork, etc.
What's the FEMA flood zone? I know you said Limois, but what's the elevation?
AE7. So
you
they
would-
were,
so you would need to be at 9,
Right.
right, plus 2. Okay,
So
so
we
you're
would
5
have to
feet
be at
higher
9.
than what the
Right.
FEMA.
We're 5 feet higher with the existing house than what FEMA would be. But it's a one-story house, as is, and we're proposing to do a 2-story house, which I think it's reasonable. The number is high,
Yeah.
but it's still a modest-sized home.
Well, I think we're gonna have trouble getting to 4 with this number. I don't know what can be done to reduce the pyramid relief, but I wanna ask. I mean, I would be asking of any application over 5,000 cubic feet of pyramid relief. We had one tonight that was just a little over 5,000, and
Yeah.
we're having them reconsider.
Can you lower the house?
Lower the existing house?
Probably not what I'm thinking.
No.
You have to demolish the house, I think.
You would have to
probably.
demolish the house in order to do that, and we went to great extents with the Conservation Board to demonstrate that it wasn't necessary to demolish the house. The pilings are in good shape. They are, we inspected the piling situation. The engineer certified that with a little bit of shoring up and a couple of additional pilings being, helical piles being added, that it was in very good shape. So it wouldn't make any sense to lower
Got it.
the existing house.
Okay, just asking.
You would have to demolish the whole thing, and then we'd
Okay.
be going back to the
That-
Conservation Board and.
Yeah, then the next question is, as John was getting into, starting with the attic, what could be done to reduce what's being proposed here?
I'd have to go back to the architect and ask him how to redesign the roof line in order to bring, we can't really bring, the ceiling heights are only at 8, existing and proposed. The floor height, first floor, is what it is. So it would really just be a matter of squishing that, technical term, squishing the roof height.
Right, right. Maybe changing the design of the roof. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that number's just a non-starter for me, and I'm not gonna negotiate and say, oh, well, if you could reduce it by, but that number's just.
Okay.
But,
That was my next question, is there a number that we're trying to get to?
Not from me.
Okay. I couldn't tell you right now what it
Right.
could possibly be.
Right, right.
May I say something?
Sure.
On one thing, where, Suzanne, where you mentioned that the first floor elevation is 14.5, where the flood zone requires a 9-foot elevation.
Correct.
So theoretically, if you tore the house down and you built a house and had more feet with the pilings, you could do something where you wouldn't be needing such a large encroachment. Because I couldn't say yes for encroachment that's anywhere as large as what you're asking. How you and your architect figure out how to get a reasonable number, and I'm sure Mr. Grossman is the person to tell you what a reasonable number might be. And,
You're putting me on the spot now.
with the conversations with our other colleagues, but Suzanne, 14,000 feet. I mean, maybe, I think he has one of several choices. He can tear the house down and build, reduce the piling. He can just live with a one-story house that we said was, oh my God, corrected, 1,479 feet, which is, I consider, an adequate house without getting the other 1,457 feet. So, I have suggested 2 possibilities. But of course, it's you, the owner, and the architect who have to reach into your wherever and come up with something that is a number substantially, underlying, under that 14,000 feet.
Yeah.
Well, it's 12,000.
No.
It's not 14.
No.
Are there
Not
other,
for me. I'm only speaking for me. That would still not be acceptable.
are there other variances in the neighborhood? You said there's a lot
There
of two-story
are.
houses.
Yeah,
The one
there.
next door.
Yeah, I'll hand up some. I mean, the problem is a lot of them were built before the board put a cubic feet number
Yeah. Yeah.
on what that relief is. So there's not a lot of information. But there are several variances, and every house is 2 stories.
This is just one set, Suzanne?
Yeah.
Okay. before I distribute them.
Yeah.
I get the one with the
Take
stamp
them
or
all
not?
apart. No, you can't have the one with the stamp.
So, with respect to tearing down the house and building a new
Cost of
house,
that is-
I don't think that's a realistic option. It's not in the budget that the homeowner was anticipating, putting in here. And in my opinion, a huge waste of resources. Tear down a perfect, we have enough people tearing down perfectly good houses in this town.
Okay.
When you have someone not interested in tearing down the house, it,
Well, maybe he can learn to live in a one-family and one-story house.
I think we can look at readjusting the roof line. I think that's the.
Significantly.
And
would have to
you
be
asked,
significant.
and I've been asked to give a range. So I think if we're close to 5,000 cubic feet,
5,000?
if we're closer going in that direction. That is, I'm not saying it has to be 5,000, but close to it. I think that to get 4 votes. Yeah. I don't know whether it's gonna be feasibly possible to do that, but, you asked me for
You mean something
a
north
number.
of 5,000?
No, I mean.
South of
South
5,000.
south of
Yeah,
5,000, or.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we just told the other man no.
Yeah.
What,
Right.
what, you mean?
On the other hand, this
What
is,
is the neighbor?
this is
I'm looking
different
at-
than
I'm looking
his
at
in
the
that
map.
Yeah.
we have these constraints on the property.
What is
So.
this neighbor?
Well, but
He
the
get
constraint
variances?
is a pylon.
I don't,
Right.
It's
I don't believe
not.
that neighbor did. I think
Well,
it pre-exists pyramid.
I just want to share with the board as well something else, which is when we dealt with these issues with coastal erosion and having people raise houses, we once had someone from the building department make a presentation to us as a board, this is several years ago. And, you know, it was expressed to us how important it was, not only that we have people raise their homes to protect them from, you know, from that storm damage, but have them go above what the requirements are. And the reason for that is because they changed the rules. So people go and they have it to a certain height because they want to do, the minimum. And then all of a sudden, they're supposed to be 2 feet higher, they're not, and their flood insurance doubles. So people are a bit of a box with these things too. And that was, I just want to share that. I mean, and I'm not for granting pyramid relief, without all these considerations.
Right.
But I just, want to mention that as well, that's, it is a problem for
Right,
people
but-
who are making these decisions.
But this is also not a situation where we have a homeowner coming in and saying that they're building something and they want to comply with FEMA regulations. Like in the past, we've had a woman come in who was moving the house and it had to be a certain height for FEMA regulations, and so we were a little, and if she certainly wasn't asking for the amount of relief that's being asked here.
Right.
Right.
I know.
And it's also, a fact that perhaps some of our codes don't really reflect some of the changes that have taken place regarding FEMA and height and things
Right.
like that in the
Right.
past. And
Right.
that's our responsibility as a town to take all that into consideration and
Yep.
make those adjustments.
I'm just curious on one thing, if I may.
Sure, of course.
Just as an analysis, I personally, as opposed to demoing and then all that stuff concerns me from a planning standpoint of the disturbance associated with the wetlands and everything else. There's a lot of work that goes in removing
Right.
pilings and
Right.
redesigning everything. I'm not crazy about the idea, but I'm merely curious, do you know what the number looks like? Just, had the house been at the proper elevation,
Yeah.
what would that number look like? I'm curious,
How-
we don't
how
know what
much
the
of a
number looks
reduction?
like if we were to,
Yeah.
if it
It would have
was.
been 5 feet less.
Yeah,
Right, well,
5 feet
the
lower.
calculation of cubic, yeah.
So what
And that-
I was, along the same lines, I was thinking that I should come back with an analysis of the existing house, the
Right.
pyramid noncompliance with that.
Right,
And
right.
what would the noncompliance be with our proposed house if we were to be at elevation 9 as opposed to 14 and a half?
Right.
Because, and
That's
and I
good
would.
information.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, because we're already out of compliance with pyramid with the existing one-story house.
Right.
So I think that would be useful for you.
But only, looks
But
like
it's,
only
but
a
it's very
relatively
little.
small.
I mean, this
Yeah.
is the existing roof.
Yeah.
Right.
So the pyramid relief one would need, and are these two little,
Corners. So
Corners.
It
Right.
looks like a very small
Yeah.
amount.
Right.
And basically, most of the proposed
It's
second
the-
story
it's the-
is within the,
is
is
all the-
outside the pyramid.
Most of it is.
Probably
Most of it is.
50, 60% at least.
I mean, I would never recommend someone lower their house.
Yeah.
do
This
we
is
think
on
about the
Dune
pit
Road,
size?
just across the street. This is velocity zone
Is it
and,
38.9?
much higher.
Right, right.
And these,
38?
these maps were these maps were designed in 2009.
Yeah,
That's over 10 years ago.
right, right.
It's a long time ago, and I think conditions have changed since then.
Yeah, yeah. Can we reduce the size of the attic? Can we do a lot to eliminate the attic? 'Cause
Yeah,
that would
those are
help.
things that I will have the architect look at.
Yeah.
And I'll also come back with an analysis. Once we reduce that as much as possible, I'll look at an
Yeah.
analysis of,
Yeah.
if it were at 9, we'd need this much, but we're
The maximum
higher.
Maximum is
42.
42.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you came and asked for what they would like, and
Yeah, okay. All right.
Have we ever granted that much?
I'm not sure.
I
but-
know of
but
one that's
I'm not sure.
19,000.
Yeah, I'm sure there are a couple going all the way back.
I can
to
bring
those.
in copies of them, but if
Feel,
they're
feel
in.
free, feel
Okay.
free. But I mean,
That's in
like I said
Dell,
before,
in Aubrey.
I suspect there are
I
gonna
know
be
I'm
differences.
mixing things
in-
up, aren't I?
in terms of What was going on those properties at that time.
Every project's different.
Yes,
It
this
is.
is.
Okay.
It is.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the board? Katie, Anthony?
Nope.
Is there anyone in the room who would like to be heard in connection with this application, which is the application of Presta for property located at 626 Dune Road in West Hampton? Is there anyone who's waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with this application, which is, again, is for 626 Dune Road in West Hampton? If you're waiting to be heard on Zoom, this would be the time to let us know by raising your hand.
No, sir.
Okay. John, it's yours.
Do you want to hold it open?
Yeah.
We,
Oh, yeah.
until, well, when
Yeah,
does
we-
she want to come back?
When would you like to come back?
Um,
What are our dates in June and July?
It's
June
June 1st, and it must be June 1st,
June
June 15th.
June 1st and the 15th.
Yep.
I guess June 1st.
Okay.
I
So
think I'm
you'll
on
you'll
vacation
have,
then.
Okay,
I'll
so.
tell them I have to have it by then.
Yep.
So I move to hold the hearing on this application open to the June 1st calendar.
second?
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
you.
your consideration.
Have a good rest of your night.
Good seeing you.
Okay, number 5 on the calendar, Robert and Gretchen Savage, 36 Boathouse Road, Hampton Bays, Suffolk County Tax Map number 900-176-1-10. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the Town Code for proposed addition to the pre-existing dwelling. Number 1, Section 330-115C, continuance for a principal front yard setback of 24.7 feet where 27.6 feet is existing. Number 2, Section 330-11, Residence District's Table of Dimensional Regulations for a total lot coverage of 24% where a maximum of 20% is permitted. And 3, Section 330-84D, Height Pyramid for a total pyramid encroachment in the amount of 2,990 cubic feet, proposed east side 102 cubic feet, west 11 cubic feet, north 12 cubic feet, south 1,851 cubic feet, and an existing encroachment of 1,014 cubic feet south. In addition, applicant requests relief from Town Code Section 330-94, Schedule of Off-Street Space Requirements for Residential Uses to allow 2 additional parking spaces to be located in the required front yard on a non-conforming lot, and any other relief necessary.
The board has jurisdiction?
Is there anyone here on behalf of the applicant?
On
On Zoom, okay. All right, just need to swear you in. If you can state your name and address for the record, please. Can you hear us?
Michelle Wagner-Nevia, I'm the art.
Okay. And your
Can you
address?
hear me?
We can hear you. We got your name, we didn't get your address.
Okay, 57 Rollstone Avenue, West Sayville, New York, 11796.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, if you can tell us about the application.
Okay. I just want to clarify something first. There's a discrepancy with the amount of the pyramid encroachment on the ZBA application. So a few weeks ago, when the building department was reviewing the drawings and the application so that it could be forwarded to Candace to be put on for tonight, Marge had realized that the way I did the zoning pyramid calculations on my original drawings was done from the property line. And she told me about the memo that was created about a year ago, and or maybe a year and a half ago, that said that it was an interpretation of the head of the building department at that time that the pyramid starts at the average elevation of the front line of the house, of the natural grade. So I revised my pyramid, this raised the beginning of the pyramid, so my pyramid calculations went down a little bit. So there were original drawings that should be in the file, full-size drawings, 2 sets that I sent to Marge, and then Marge forward did that to Candace with the rest of the file. So the way that the call of the meeting, that shows that the proposed encroachment is 2,990 cubic feet. That is the right number. The Board of Appeals application that was filed in November had it at 3189. So it went down a couple hundred cubic feet. So 2990 cubic feet is the relief that we're asking for the pyramid encroachment. This property and most of the properties in this area were subdivided and developed prior to 1957, and many are non-conforming to current zoning. All of the proposed variances will be in keeping with the existing character of the neighborhood and nearby properties. Within a 150-foot radius, there are a few other homes that have, a couple that have substantial pyramid encroachments, but they're old, non-conforming. But I just calculated these numbers just to give you the character of the area. 61 Inlet Road has about a 5,000 cubic foot encroachment into the pyramid. These lots are narrow, 50, 60 feet wide. 63 Inlet Road West is about 9,500 cubic feet of encroachment. It's just existing character of the area. There was a variance that was granted for the property directly west of the subject property, across the street on Boathouse Road at 73 Inlet Road West, was granted a pyramid variance of 3,515 cubic feet on March 19, 2015. They were also granted a front yard setback of 14 feet on Boathouse Road instead of the required 40 feet. We are asking for a very minimal front yard variance compared to what's existing. We're just putting a very small addition on the front of the house in order to create enough space to put a garage. This property does not have a garage. The only place to put it is to put it in the house attached. So we're actually demolishing 2 bedrooms on the front of the house on the first floor and then adding a little bit to that so we have enough room to park a car inside the garage. The front yard setback we're asking for is 24.7 feet. The adjacent house to the south of the subject property, which is 67 Inlet Road West, has a front yard on Boathouse Road of only 9.6 feet. So what we're asking for, there are some other houses in the area that have much less. It's a very irregular neighborhood, as you know. The setbacks are all over the place. The existing lot coverage is 24%, and the proposed lot coverage is 24%. In order to have the attached garage, we are demolishing a shed, a detached shed on the south side of the property, and we're going to take that exact same square footage and we're going to put a small addition on the front of the house. The other thing is that during the recent building department review, they said there was a existing piece of the driveway that's in the town's right-of-way. It's a small section that on the north side of the driveway where they park next to the pavement. And she said that's not allowed. So we are going to remove that piece of the driveway that's in the town's right-of-way, and the driveway will only be exactly the width of the
proposed two-car attached garage. The driveway is going to line up with the sides of the garage. It has two garage doors, and it'll just go straight out to the street. And we'll take out that little piece of gravel in the front. The granting of the variance and the expansion of this house is going to require the sanitary system to be upgraded to current Suffolk County standards, which will be a substantial improvement to the environmental conditions on this property since it's a waterfront lot. Also, due to the existing zoning nonconformities of the house and the lot, the existing Sal's property line is only 3.3 feet. So I pushed the second floor way in to try to minimize the pyramid variance as much as possible. It's impossible to expand this house without the benefit of variances from the Board of Appeals. In light of these facts, it's our opinion that these variances are the minimum required to allow the owner to have the desperately needed garage space and additional living space. These variances are not substantial for the character of the area, and if granted, will not create an undesirable change in the neighborhood. Any questions, comments?
I just want to ask about the parking spaces.
Could you tell me a little bit about the mezzanine?
The mezzanine is a very small open space. When you get up, it's about 9 feet wide. It's got a railing that goes all the way across, so that when you stand there, there is a 2-story space in the middle of the den. And when you're standing up on the balcony, the mezzanine, you're looking down into the den. And there's a clear story windows that you can see out of. Because it is a waterfront lot, the owner wanted to be able to maximize the view. And I told him, you can't have a 3rd floor unless you're going to put fire sprinklers in the building. So we did a mezzanine instead. And a few weeks ago, during the building department review, Art Gerhauser and I went through everything, and I actually, to clarify it and make sure that it complied exactly to the code, I put the calculations, the mezzanine calculations, because it's limited to be only 1/3 of the area of the room below. So there are calculations on the plans, the full-size plans that were put in the file a few weeks ago that show that it complies as a mezzanine. It is not a 3rd floor.
All right, and Ms. Riley noted.
I read that about
Yeah.
what Arthur said.
Helen, do you ask about that because of the pyramid relief?
I'm just curious in terms of
Okay.
what Marge wrote in her comment.
Okay.
I just wanted to pursue that.
Okay.
And I don't feel that the pyramid relief is, I don't have any problem with the pyramid.
Okay. Okay.
I think that Ms. Wagner has made every effort to comply as much as possible.
It's a very difficult lot. It is one of the smallest in the entire area of Shinnecock Hills. And so I knew that trying to make the roof line low, the hip roof helps a lot to minimize the pyramid encroachment, and it's a pretty low pitch. All these things allowed him to get the space that they wanted on the inside, but minimize the roof line on the outside. It's going to be very interesting getting all the HVAC in there, but we'll do it.
Have you seen the building department comments that we received? Did you see the?
Yeah.
You did. Okay. Have you addressed them? Just want to make sure. So.
The only other thing that you mentioned was that I was misunderstanding the way the code is written. There's a table that says the minimum number of parking spaces required for a house depending on how many bedrooms you have, which for this house is a 3-bedroom house, and she said it has allowed it needs 2 parking spaces, which we're providing with the indoor 2-car attached garage. But then she said because you have an additional space for 2 more cars in the driveway, we needed a variance to have that extra parking. But I said, it's a garage and you have to be able to get into it from the street. You know, there's no way of avoiding that. If that's a variance, then I guess we have to go for it.
Extra parking in the front.
Oh, front.
In the front, which that's where people
And
park.
how will you get into the garage then?
Yeah, there's no other way to get into the garage except drive in from the street. So you get to park in front of the garage doors. So now there's room for 4 cars to park on the property. And she said, you have to get a variance for the other 2 spaces. It didn't make sense to me, but she said she had to add it to the variance.
So this
Doesn't
is what I
make any
understand.
sense to me.
2 cars.
Hold on.
I'm sorry, no.
Yes.
So in other words, they're saying that the 2 spaces in the garage qualify and count as the 2 required parking spaces. Then you have the driveway going to there. I'm just asking it, so is the building department saying, and that driveway, the 2 that could park there, is within the front yard or something?
Without looking at the surveys, probably, it could be the size of the driveway or parking area.
Yeah.
That's
They will-
something
they
I
will
want to
allow-
look at that
they-
as an
they
issue
will-
that we
they
might
will
have to
allow-
address.
No, they will
wanna
allow
see that?
for a turnaround for you to
Yeah.
get in and out, but if you have extra space in that parking area, they are going to count it. I don't know what the driveway looks like, but yes.
Well, that'll be a conversation.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I always found this all a bit mystifying, really, because I don't know anybody who doesn't park in their front yard. Most people do. A variance to park in your front yard, really? So,
Michelle,
but what do I know?
Marge also said that your survey still shows a large portion of the driveway and parking on the town property. Has that been addressed?
Yeah, that was the piece that was mentioning that we're gonna remove.
Okay.
I have a highlighted survey showing the little piece that we're gonna take out, but can I share what's on my screen?
You can share it, but you just have to fix the survey and submit it to the board.
Oh, just saying that we're gonna remove that piece of the driveway.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm headed out for the weekend, everybody.
Okay, take care.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you,
Have a
Anthony.
good night. All right. Any other questions from members of the board?
I just, it's not a great deal of relief, but I'm not happy about pyramid relief for that mezzanine area, since it's just an architectural, it's not living space, it's not necessary, but it's not significant either, but it's not something that.
most of the pyramid relief is for the second floor.
I see that.
On the south side of the house.
I see that.
Which I set in, I set it in seven feet from the first floor to try to push it this far. It's because the existing house only has a 3.3 side yard. So it's really, most of the pyramid variance is for the second floor, not for the mezzanine.
I see that. Okay.
Okay.
I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anyone who's here in the auditorium who would like to be heard in connection with the application of Savage? This is for property located at 36 Boathouse Road in Hampton Bays. Is there anyone who's waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with this application, which is again for property located at 36 Boathouse Road in Hampton Bays? If you are waiting to be heard on Zoom, this would be the time to let us know by raising your hand.
No hands.
No hands. If not, Bob, it's yours.
Okay, I will hold it open for written submissions until May 19th with a decision on 6-1. We just need a new survey, that's all.
Second.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your night.
Can I make one comment?
Thank you.
Sure.
Can I make one comment?
Sure.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
I appreciate that when Ms. Wagner made these plans, that when I hear her, I get a feeling that she was very conscious of the need to ask for less encroachment that was absolutely necessary. And I like that kind of approach by an architect. And I don't see that too often in the review of our application. That's all I want to say.
Okay.
I agree, Helen.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Next.
Okay, number 6 on the calendar, Joseph Alwasio, 219 Ocean View Parkway, North Sea. Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-64-1-46.3. Applicant requests a determination as to whether or not the proposed accessory building is a subordinate or incidental building pursuant to Town Code Section 330-5 definitions because of its size in proportion to the main dwelling and its use. In addition, applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the Town Code for a proposed accessory apartment within an accessory building on a non-conforming lot. 1. Section 330-11.2F, special standards to allow the proposed accessory apartment to be located on a property with a lot area of 80,030 square feet, where a minimum of 160,000 square feet is required. 80% of the required 200,000 square feet. 2. Section 330-11.2J1 to allow 2 driveways where only 1 access driveway shall be permitted on the lot having an accessory apartment. And 3. Section 330-11.2G1 to allow an accessory apartment to be constructed in an accessory building with a total floor area of 137% of the principal dwelling, where a maximum of 35% is allowed, and any other relief necessary.
I need your affidavit of posting.
Need which?
The affidavit of posting.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Board has jurisdiction.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening. Just have to swear in. I'm not sure of my minutes. I'll swear you both in. If you can state your names and addresses for the record, please.
Keith Boyce, 48 Atlantic Avenue, East Marshall, New York.
Okay, and so,
Sean Ludwig, 219 Ocean View Parkway.
and do you both swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't get his first name.
You can give us your first name?
Architect.
Keith.
It's Keith.
Okay, very good. So you can tell us about the application.
Sure. The property is a 219 Ocean View Parkway. It's an 80,000 square foot lot. It's my father's property. Trying to figure out how to increase the size of it for family use. And it's a non-conforming lot. So there's about a significant amount of setbacks that constrict the amount of development that can be done on it. So we were contemplating what can be done, and we're looking to create a cabana, a recreational use on the property. And along the process, we came upon that there wasn't necessarily a limit on the amount of square footage that could be done, but then we were denied, saying that there was 35% of the size of the auxiliary structure to the main structure. The main structure is very small. It's a 1,000 square foot footprint of a little cottage. So it's older, and I really don't want to renovate that and to make that larger. And even by the setbacks, it would be required other zoning variance to do that. So we found a portion of the property that would be available to create another structure, some more usage for the land. We contemplated doing 2 or 3 different structures. One of this 35% of the 1,500 square feet, but it would make each building 500 square feet. All right, so if I put 500 square feet little buildings, it seems like that would be accessible, it would be allowed. But even that it's vague. So I'm here overall trying to figure out what I could do with my property to have more use of it.
Okay. So we have had this issue come up many times, where we've had accessory structures that are close to the same size as or larger than the primary structure. The problem is that it's not in the code. What happens is if it's above, if the accessory structure as proposed, if it's below 25% of the size of the primary structure, it's deemed to be accessory by the building department downstairs. If it's more than 25%, the application gets sent to us to make a determination. Okay. I will also tell you that in our determinations that we've made over the years, when we are at close to the size or over the size of the primary structure, it becomes a real issue because we have to make a determination that an accessory structure is accessory to the primary structure. And if it's bigger than the primary structure, we really can't make that determination. So instead, what we've had people do is one of a couple of things. One of the things is to take what is a proposed accessory structure and make it into multiple structures, which is, I think, one of the things you just mentioned. The other thing that can be done is to have it attached to the primary structure, have like a breezeway. And then that eliminates the whole issue of the determination of which is accessory versus primary structure. So those are the two ways that we've dealt with it. I don't know what the percentage is of the size of the proposed accessory building as compared with the primary structure, but just looking at it and looking at what we have, it appeared to be larger.
Correct.
The square footage is larger.
Yeah. So
The profile, though, is a third of the size.
Okay. I
What does that
understand.
mean?
Well, the house is almost 25 feet tall
Uh-huh.
from the street. The building is located 110 feet back from the street, which is down approximately 12 feet below the street,
Uh-huh.
and it's only 17 foot high. So the
Okay.
roof line will be but 5 feet or so, might be a little more.
From the street.
Yeah, above the street.
But that's not the analysis we have to
Right.
use. We have to use an analysis about I believe it's the living area of the accessory, the proposed accessory building versus, when I say living area, sometimes we've had an accessory apartment in a building that has partly an accessory apartment and partly like a garage underneath. So we've had we've had more than a few applications like that.
So am I limited then to having just 2 accessory structures, or could I have 3 if I break it down into these segments of?
I don't think I don't know that it's a limitation, but I mean, we've had people have multiple accessory buildings or structures. We've had people do that.
See, our first encumbrance came because the property had 2 streets, which we found right as we filed were abandoned. So a lot of our design issues were based upon another 100-foot setback from those streets. So it kind of shoehorned us into a really tight spot. And we just thought if we just did one building, kept it simple and low, that it would be less obtrusive than having, whatever. But I'd rather follow the regulations you can guide us to. Because
Well,
if
it's really.
we're just shooting blanks here, right?
No, I understand, and this is, case by case, so I mean, but I will tell you, I don't believe, since I've been on the board, we've ever granted more than 100% on an accessory building where the primary, where it's more than 100% of the size.
I understand.
And you have to understand the reason why, because the accessory structure is the primary structure, if it's bigger than what you consider to be the primary structure. If it's, and one can make the arguments as to what the use is, the extent of the use, how many people are living there, but we just have not gone there. So in my view, if you're looking to have that, one big accessory structure, and have a smaller primary structure, to me, the solution is to connect them, to find a way to connect them.
Could you just kind of give me a little more clarification? Along the spirit of trying to, work with the board and make something happen here, you said it should not be above 100%. Is 99%, is 95% acceptable? Like what, I understand, and there's vagary in the code.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've done, over 50%. I think we've done 75%. I think we've probably done on a few occasions close to 100%, and probably that was on a split vote and just barely got through.
So for argument's sake, again, just for some guidance, so that I can go back and revise my plans and the approach. If I were to approach is at 95%, for argument's sake, is that something that's acceptable?
I don't know. I can't give you a definitive answer on that. I'm just one member of this board.
Well, I mean, can I get the zeitgeist of the board at this moment?
Well, I think if you're looking to have a big accessory building, I think that you want to, I think that the better way to go will be to try to connect it to the house.
The
There's a
property.
pool in between.
There's a pool in between, exactly right.
There's a pool in
It's
between.
the reason why, and the cost becomes prohibitive. I'm trying to do this at a level where this is more of a family structure and to be kept than some kind of resale profit,
Right.
project.
Could you just explain to me,
Yes.
so the main level plan, right, has a studio apartment with gym, yoga room, cabana, and all of that. Then we have a first floor, what is?
That's the existing structure.
This is the existing
existing.
structure. Okay, I wasn't sure how that fit in.
No, this is, I think just for calculations
Go to the
purposes.
sheet.
Okay. And
A1.
so this gym, yoga room, cabana room, pool linens, all of that, is that for use only by the accessory, or is that for use by the primary as well?
The primary.
So really, the accessory portion of it would be the studio apartment?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
And it has its own entrance, and it cannot enter.
I'm actually, let me, before you say correct, what is that, what do you mean by the word accessory? What is that, can you define how you're using that word?
Well, an accessory structure is one that is, I don't want to say subservient, but it's
A secondary
it's
structure.
a secondary structure which is smaller and than the primary. That's what
I understand. So
what I'm looking at here is an option for you would be this: if the gym cabana is for both properties, or
Right.
primarily for the primary use, creating a structure for that off the pool, and then another structure for the studio apartment.
I understand that. I agree that
Those
there's an
would be
option.
accessory. Possibly, unless, depending upon, and I'm not saying one way or another, but it depends upon the square footage.
So you're saying build a pool house?
Yeah, it's like,
And
because
then-
that seems
and
to be a
then
pool
accessory
house. You have a
apartment
pool
that's
house
smaller,
attached to a
100%.
studio apartment, and then you're calling this an accessory structure.
You might have
It's
to
just too
consider that.
large.
And I
Yeah,
understand that.
thank you, pool house. I'm just like,
I think the idea was just the locations of it, because as you
Yeah.
notice, there's a pool.
there's a
between
pool
the
right
two,
in between.
And a pool house behind it, just with the way the land is structured, it's a bit of a ravine.
Yeah, so I think, I know you want guidance from us in some way.
Right.
I can't give you a number that's gonna have 4 votes off the top of my head, but what I can tell you is that if the percentage is significantly under, 90%, like 80, 70, 60%, I would say that would help a great deal.
So for example, just, and again, just procedural guidance, if I were to go back with Keith here and change this to 80% and I have to reapply, that would be voted on then? Like that's,
You'd come back with a revised application and we'd continue the discussion. I mean, we're not gonna close it tonight, we're gonna be having
Right.
it come back.
Right.
Based
May I
on-
say something?
Sure.
Mr.
Yeah.
President? I need the applicants to keep in mind that the number that we start from is 25%. It's not like we start from 100% and then we sort of edge downward, so that 80% is going to be okay. And you're given some alternatives where you wouldn't even have to ask for that much. So I think you have to think very strongly of the alternatives, because I myself, my vote, wouldn't, it's not like, you put out a number and we'll tell you, oh yes, 80% is gonna be okay. Well, it might not be okay. Keeping in mind that 25% is the number, a little close to 25% is something I think we can all agree on. Unless you have heard what Mr. Grossman has said repeatedly as an alternative where you don't have to be concerned as much about the number. So I just needed to say that.
Which apparently is an issue because they can't attach the house to the proposed accessory apartment because of the location of the pool.
Right.
That's already there.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's what the problem is, so that unfortunately.
But he has other options with regard to creating a cabana, a
Yep.
pool house.
Yep.
And then also an accessory structure for a studio apartment.
right. So, okay, so just to make sure I'm hearing this correctly, I could do multiple structures, multiple structures.
Accessory structures.
Well, I suppose you could, but the question is, what you're looking to do and where it's to be located and what the percentages are. So-
What are side yard setbacks in this zone?
That's something I haven't looked up. I think we're R60 now, and I think it's a,
Or are you R200?
That's the issue.
We
We are R200 because it's been rezoned.
yeah, we got
rezoned.
upzoned to
So that's
R2.
non-conforming.
CR 200 right now.
Because you
that
got
creates-
77 and 80 feet on either side of this house.
No, yeah, and the 87 is non-conforming because it's supposed to be 100.
Okay, that's what I was
And
asking.
from,
Is it
and it's
100?
supposed to be 100 from Great Hill Road, which I don't see the number on here. I probably have it on my site plan though. It's,
Yeah.
it's the 77 square foot setback, 77-foot setback from the westerly property line that we're gonna have to look up, and maybe we can do something that parallels the pool, but then it surrounds the pool. I don't know if, you know, we're just locked into
Right, the
this
setbacks
narrow
of this
lane.
non-conforming lot creates this undue hardship.
Well, I mean, but you could put a cabana, a pool cabana on the eastern side of the pool.
Yeah, I mean, it's very far, isn't this the pool here?
Not the eastern
And
side,
isn't-
the western
isn't
side,
this the-
the western side.
This
Correct.
structure is very
North,
far away
south.
from the
Oh.
pool though, isn't it?
No,
It'll be the eastern side.
Isn't the
eastern
cabana?
side.
The cabana, the apartment is the
pool,
far
you
end.
could put a cabana here.
I think the reason we didn't was because of
Pool cabana's
setbacks.
closer.
We're governed by the
it's far.
setbacks
The
of
house is
our
closer to the
CR
pool.
200.
It's
That's
Right,
it's
but you would
down
probably do
9,
better
10, 12.
asking for setback
Agreed.
relief than you would be asking for an inordinate percentage of accessory structure relief.
Yes.
We would be more disposed to give you setback relief
Okay.
for a cabana structure, and then an accessory apartment that would be, I mean, and I don't know what the percentage of what you have proposed to the actual primary building is, but you know.
That's a very defined number. We had a calculation that we've gone back and forth with.
How much is just the studio
The
apartment?
studio apartment is just
446
456 square feet or something.
And how much is the square footage of the primary?
Of the primary house, inhabitable is 1,500 square feet.
Yeah,
It's a third.
yeah, we're about 30%, so it's about a third.
That's
You're
about right.
Well, now we're getting somewhere. We're getting closer to the mark, because we're looking at 25% as a benchmark. We're not looking at 90% as a benchmark.
No, I understand.
25% is where building department deems it to be accessory.
But I think there would be some subjectivity based on the size of the house. This house is 1,500 square feet on an 80,000 square foot parcel.
Yeah, well, we've had a few circumstances where the former chair, Herb Phillips, used to say, well, when you have these properties with really small primary structures, well, I mean, the alternative would be for the applicant to expand the primary structure
primary.
so that the percentage isn't so much. And do we really want people to do that? Do we want people to have bigger primary
Initially, we
structures?
couldn't do that because of the setbacks.
I understand,
The road.
but these are it's another thing I just want to mention in terms of the kind of the back and forth about this. But the best thing in my view is for you to consider what we're saying and to come up with an alternative proposal. I can't guarantee that alternative proposal will be the final, that we'll be good with it.
Right.
But we're trying to give you as much guidance as we can.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, helpful, because otherwise we're just a little bit, throwing darts in the dark. The setback relief is helpful to understand that that's more of a likely alternative. What about also
Because you have a huge amount, you have 89.4 feet right here.
Right.
So you have a lot to play with.
Again, and I think when our initial approach was looking at the CR 200, when they did the little map of the lines, that was the only place we could put, the box. Right.
And it's not impossible to do a long structure that attaches the house, goes around the pool, and goes to the accessory building.
For sure.
But it would be an expense.
Right.
But it's not impossible. It could be done.
But it becomes, right, I mean, I think that.
If you really want to have everything be in one big accessory structure,
No,
it's
but-
not impossible.
No, but you can't, we don't want to encourage them to keep the accessory apartment within the cabana, because as long as the
Right.
two are in the same structure, all of that habitable space is going to be counted against them. That's
Right,
why,
right.
that's why they're asking for 137%. Accessory apartment is supposed to be 35% the size of the house. Now they're asking for 137, and that's because the apartment is added to the cabana, because it's all habitable space and it's all within the same structure.
Right. Just want to mention, the 35% goes with the accessory apartment regulations. The 25% goes with primary versus accessory structures. So I just want
Right.
to explain
So-
that. There are two different percentages.
Right.
One is related to the accessory apartment law, the other is related to our analysis of the
So-
primary.
But in either way, just get down there.
No, I hear you.
But
If any of
what
it-
John's saying is, you have two structures, and the percentages will be much smaller. And then I suspect that we would be closer to where we want to be, if not where we want to be.
And how does I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
I was going to ask, so all of the land around that, that's all vegetated?
Correct.
Okay.
It's a forest
See, that's
area.
another thing. It would be nice if you didn't have to devegetate
Right.
an
We're
entire
only
swath of.
gonna take that out, it's, around the
Understood.
building, really, it's a really tight clearing.
Right now, I think we're less than 10% of devegetation of the property. I think it's like 6%.
Okay.
Currently. So it's basically a big forest, back there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you're also saying that if we don't have a private driveway to the apartment, that's not even, that would come off the application?
Well, what are you imagining? How are you imagining?
Well, initially, we're gonna park the car and let the tenant would have the access to its own area from the car, because it was.
Did you
it
say
was-
the tenant was
It was
gonna
so
be your father?
far away from the.
I think there's two ideas.
Is it your dad?
My dad's right here. I'd probably it'd be another family member who would use it, or, down the road, there's some accessibility to,
Yeah.
other alternatives. I don't want to lock myself in. I'd be a little.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, I'm just thinking in terms of.
But right at the immediate.
If it's your father and your father's elderly, you don't want him like walking.
Right.
Far from the driveway to the.
Correct.
To the apartment.
So that was the idea of having a second driveway.
So I think.
I think you've given me some guidance,
yeah,
certainly.
Yeah.
So just, again, not to put words in your mouth, but just so I understand, the driveway would be acceptable, a second driveway. That would be something that would be less of a encroachment on your rules.
I think we're a lot less worried about that than we are about
Okay.
the other things we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have approved that in certain circumstances where an accessory apartment, which meets the affordability, is granted.
Yeah. Okay. And by the way,
Not in
we
every
want-
case, but in some.
I know you probably haven't had a chance to walk the site, but when you see the site and you go there and you see how athletic you have to be to get from one end
I
of the
did,
site to another.
I did a site inspection, but I drove by. I didn't
Yeah.
actually
Yeah,
walk
it's,
along.
You're not gonna be panting, but you just think to yourself, oh man, I just walked up 9 feet and crossed 175.
Yeah.
It would be just a labyrinth of decking.
Yeah.
Right?
It just seems reasonable that all of this gets moved closer to the main structure. You could have your driveway here. I would just consider putting the cabana on the eastern portion of the pool, the accessory structure on the other side of the pool with the driveway. I would look into that.
So
I can't put anything on the eastern side because I'm 110 feet away from the street. Everything has got to be to the west or to the south.
Okay.
That's my,
Well,
Oh, that's right, you have 2 front yards.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could also
Two
ask
front
for
yards.
setback relief if necessary.
Yeah.
I see, okay. All
Yeah,
right.
that's what.
That's where we would go with this.
Yeah, you would,
All right.
yeah. And like I said earlier, we would probably be more inclined to give you, to give a,
Okay, so
setback
that
variance.
is making me think a little bit more.
Did you say
For example,
abandoned? Or was that?
The third and fourth road were abandoned.
if I wanted to, again, just being with the idea of cost, right, developing this other structure, if I could put a breezeway on that box, right, and build a structure here, and only require setback relief here, would that be more?
I can't give you definitive answers.
It could be.
Okay.
Right.
It's something, look, what you need to do is go back to the drawing board
Yeah.
and kind of look at different ways
And
that you
then-
could configure this.
And then come back with a revised proposal. So I appreciate that you're trying to get feedback,
Right,
right,
but we
right,
can
right.
only give so much feedback with
You might find that
Yeah.
there are financial restrictions with regard to any one of these options. You
Right.
might find that there are aesthetic restrictions with regard to these options, and you have to decide which is the best plan that you like
Right.
and present it to us.
Okay,
So we will be holding this open and have you come back.
okay.
We also have a letter in opposition from the neighbor over here, so they should just keep that in mind when they're
Yeah.
reconfiguring.
I'm sorry.
On which side is that?
Great Hill?
From Ms. Cohen, so on the
Oh, Ms.
site plan,
Cohen
it
over
looks
here.
like
She doesn't want it.
she objects to it.
Okay.
So I'm just saying, just keep that in mind, don't move anything closer.
Setbacks by her, she's gonna come in.
Yeah.
Okay, so which?
Yeah,
side
so
is
there
that?
you go.
That's
It's the
what's-
lower southwest.
It's this,
Here's her-
she's
here's her
right
letter.
here.
Okay. But in the meantime, well, first of all, are there any other questions? Okay. Is there anyone in the, who is here in connection with this application in the boardroom? This application, Aloisio, does not look like there's anyone here in the room. This is just your dad's there. Is there anyone who is waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with the application? I'm sorry?
No.
No, nobody, okay.
Nobody.
Very good.
What
Okay, so
address
my-
is Cohen? Is Cohen 452 or 450?
Is there an address on there? I think there.
My address, yes.
No, Cones.
In terms of property,
The letter.
The letter that you got.
the letter I got, no. It says zoning apartment, 450 Great Hill Road.
450, okay, so that's, okay, 450, got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so my only other question is when we'd like to come back.
Your choice is.
Second meeting in June, when would that be?
Right. I
That
think
was
it's
June
the
15th?
June 15th would be a comfortable time.
Oh, good.
Okay, so I would
Thank you
make.
very much.
Thank you, I appreciate your time.
I
Thank you so
would-
much for your help. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I would make
Thank you.
a motion that we hold this application open for all purposes until our June 15th meeting.
Second.
third.
Okay, Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you.
Okay, give me 1 second.
I'm sorry? Oh, yeah,
No quick ones tonight.
no quick ones. Well,
No?
yeah.
Okay, turning to number 7 on the calendar, re-advertised applications, Max New York Management LLC, 322 East Montauk Highway, Hampton Bays, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-231-1-40. Applicant requests relief from the following provision of the Town Code. 1, for the lifting of an existing one-family dwelling and to add a second story to the east side of the dwelling. Sub 1, Section 330.
Folks, if you can speak outside, please. Can you speak outside, please?
Dash
We're not coming on meeting.
84D
Thank you.
pyramid height for a proposed encroachment in the amount of 3,695 cubic feet as follows. On the north, 1,121 cubic feet, east, 2,142 cubic feet, and on the west, 432 cubic feet. 2, to legalize, elevate, and reconstruct the deck attached to the south side of the dwelling. Section 330-77F, placement of accessory building structures and uses in residence districts that references Section 330-11, residence districts, table of dimensional regulations for an accessory side yard setback of plus or minus 3.5 feet where 20 feet is required from the east property line, and an accessory side yard of plus or minus 13.6 feet where 20 feet is required from the west property line. And 2, Section 330-83A4, yards, to allow a deck higher than 1 foot above ground level to be located in the required front yard and any other necessary relief.
Board has jurisdiction.
Anyone here on behalf of the applicant? Yes, okay. All right.
Thank you.
Gina, does that swear you in? Good evening. Does that swear you in?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I have a sore throat, I'm sorry, I'll try to
That-
make it short.
Okay, no problem. I just have to swear you in. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Gina Rickton, DKR Shores, here to represent Max New York Property Management.
Okay, and your address? Your address?
So, we have an existing,
Gina, can you tell me your address?
oh, okay, 235 Charlotte Brook Lane in Aquabog.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. If you can tell us about the application.
Okay, I'm here to represent Max New York Management at 322 East Montauk Highway, located in Hampton Bays. It is in a AE 10 FEMA, limits moderate wave activity. It borders the wetlands by a bulkhead on the south side. It's a extremely constrained lot, non-conforming at only 3,478 total square feet. The house was damaged and has been damaged and sitting actually since Hurricane Sandy. And instead of condemn the property, pretty much they're trying to renovate the house. The neighbor actually at 324 bought the property and she wants to raise the existing 2-story dwelling to be FEMA code compliant, providing an open piling system. And she's proposing a very small addition. The house is already a 2-story. It doesn't compose the entire square footage And keep in mind, the footprint of the house is only 746 square feet. So they're proposing 173.6 square foot, very small addition on an east side. And they're proposing to obviously raise the house to be FEMA code compliant, and then to basically replace the deck, whereby elevating it on the first floor only. There actually is a small balcony on the second floor right now that will be demolished, and they're not replacing that. Now with this, a new alternative wastewater, an IA system, OWTS system, is proposed. The project already has a letter of non-jurisdiction from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. The project already has a wetland permit from the Conservation Board. And I believe I enclosed in the application, but if not, I have no problem forwarding copies to the board for their files. It's a modest house, and basically it's so small and constrained, there's nowhere to go but up. The side yard setbacks that you see in the paperwork are actually already existing. So they're not going any closer to the side yard, or any yards actually. So they're pretty much basically going up, not out, and they kind of squaring the house off. And it's very, very similar to the relief at 324 to the east. And it's actually very similar to the entire strip of houses along that long area in Hampton Bays on the way to Southampton. They're very, very small lots. So it's in conformance with the environment, with the neighborhood. It doesn't cause any other, I didn't hear from the neighbor to the west, even though, of course, they were advertised. So I haven't heard from any of the neighbors. I'm not sure if you guys have had any letters or anything. So at this point, I'd like to ask the board if they have any comments or questions.
Yep, I want to ask about the deck.
Okay.
Distance from side lot line, 20 feet to 3.2 feet for a proposed front waterside deck.
Correct.
Okay.
The deck there right now is almost on grade, actually, and it is at that setback.
But it's on grade, so it didn't need relief.
Right. But they'd like to elevate it to provide a very, very moderate egress to the doors to the back, the south side of the house.
Yeah.
And they have no other decking at all.
Okay, well, I am asking the question because 3.2 feet is pretty close to the property line.
Right, but it's consistent with what's there right now. And it's consistent with the setback of the house.
What's the setback of the house exactly?
3.2, it's at the corner of the house.
Okay, okay.
So it's flush with the corner of the house.
I see. Okay.
Gina, how much did you say is new? How much did you say is the addition? How many square feet?
173.6 feet. It's small. It's like the size of a big closet.
Okay, because if you didn't have that addition, if you weren't proposing that addition, you'd be able to elevate this house with no relief, right? The town code allows you to elevate the existing houses.
But with very, very, yes, they would be able to elevate it. It may actually require some relief. The house itself is actually within, it is not, it's with, there's part of the house actually right now that is within the pyramid. So we did specify that. So, part of the house actually already is in the pyramid zone. I'm gonna have my glasses on. So to the north, 88 cubic feet is actually within that pyramid. And then on the east is 44 cubic feet. So that there's part of the house is already encroaching, yes.
Is the house a pre-existing house?
It's pre-existing house, yes. And the relief is very, very similar to what was granted at 324, right to the east, which is actually substantially bigger than this house. And then that existing house was actually more within the pyramid, and
Did you say it was the same owner?
as it was.
Did you say it was
What?
the same, did you say it was the same owner? The owner bought that property?
Was it
I'm
the same,
sorry.
was it the same owner?
Same owner, did you say?
It's part of the family, they're not, it's not, in the same name, no.
But Gina,
It
do you
might
know,
have been,
do you know what elevation it's at now? Does it comply with FEMA now or no?
no. So it's AE 10, and it definitely does not comply, it has to go out quite a few feet to get the drawings out. I could just shrink you for a second and get my drawings out.
So this is raising and adding a second story, but they want, rather than 12,000 cubic feet of pyramid relief, they want, 3695 cubic feet.
Instead of 1,200, you mean?
Instead of 12,000.
12,000.
12,000. the other
Oh,
application.
right.
Yeah, it's a pretty minor relief. So basically, there is a second floor. It's just basically they're just going, they're sort of squaring the house out, which is very similar to all the other houses in that area, on that strip. So it's literally a piece of a room on the east side, just for headroom. So to make that space usable, it's very, very minor. It seems like a lot at 3,000 only because it is very close to the property line, but there's no complaints on that side. And the house is already at that continuing setback.
Yeah.
We're not going any closer.
I think if they weren't
To the
squaring it
side
off, they
on
could
the
raise it
eastern
as of
wall.
right.
Yeah.
With the pyramid encroachment.
I'm sorry.
I think that if you weren't proposing that small addition, you could raise it as of right with a pyramid encroachment. Because the town code was amended, to help people raise existing houses.
Anyway, just the information.
Well, it is designed appropriately. The ceiling heights are very low. It was a hip roof. It's done very pleasantly.
Yeah,
It's
that's my
really-
point.
it's really
I think the
very
addition is,
minor.
I think the addition is the only thing that's bringing it to
Right.
you, and maybe the deck.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from members of the board?
No.
There's no one in the auditorium.
No one on Zoom.
Other than us, no one on Zoom. Keith has to leave, but he's not here this evening, so I would move that we close this application, except for written submissions. The deadline for written submissions, I believe, is May 19th. And we will end the business, and we will have a decision ready at our June 1st meeting.
Second.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess? Ms. Burgess?
Have a good evening.
You too. Helen?
Thanks.
Oh,
Thank you. Bye.
What did Helen say?
Helen, your vote? Aye?
Yeah, yes, I said yes.
Okay, all right. Mr. Macedonia?
Aye.
Okay, chair votes aye. All right. Decisions?
Decisions.
Okay, sorry. All right. Okay, I have a few decisions. I'll try to be quick. All right. I have a decision on the matter of the application of Catherine Caltabiano. This is for property located at Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-265-46. This application is for property located at 14 Lincliff Road, Hampton Bays. Applicant requests a single and separate determination as well as variances to legalize a one-car garage. While this board does not condone construction done without a building permit, testimony was presented that the garage attached to the dwelling has been on the premises since at least the 1960s, without incident, well before the applicant purchased the lot. As such, this board finds that the application passes the standards set forth in New York State Town Law and the Town Code. Therefore, this board finds that the subject premises located at 14 Lincliff Road, Hampton Bays, Town of Southampton, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-26546, is a single and separate lot entitled to relief pursuant to Town Code 33115D, and further grants relief from the following provisions of the Town Code to legalize the one-car garage attached to the dwelling without the benefit of a building permit. 1. Town Code 330-84D, pyramid height, for a pyramid encroachment to the amount of 84.2 cubic feet on the east side of the property. 2. Town Code 33011, residence table, districts, table of dimensional regulations, for a minimum required side yard setback of 10 feet where 20 feet is required. And 3. Town Code 330-115C, continuance, for a total required side yard setback of 24.3 feet where 30 feet was pre-existing, as shown on the survey prepared by Angelo Joseph Cesare, of AJC Land Surveying LLC, last dated February 8, 2023, and the garage addition plans prepared by Jeffrey Sands, architect, dated March 17, 2023. Grant of the foregoing is subject to such relief, is subject to such other conditions and permits as applicant is already required or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises.
Second.
Mr. Macedonia.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Abstain.
Chair votes aye. Next, have a determination on the matter of the application
No,
of,
adjourn.
that one is adjourned, okay. So I will make a motion to adjourn the decision on the application of HB Beach House LLC until our May 18th meeting.
Second.
Mr. Macedonia.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. I next have a determination on the matter of the application of Kelly Pike, which was formerly known as 210s LLC, for property located at Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-231-27.1. This application is for property located at 2 Tepe Street, Hampton Bays. Applicant seeks variances in connection with a proposed pool and also to remove conditions from a previous ZBA decision in order to legalize structures that are required to stabilize the dwelling and offer a secondary means of egress. While this board does not typically remove conditions from prior variances, it does find the evidence before it persuasive that the removal of both the concrete patio and decking would be detrimental to the applicant with no benefit to the neighborhood. This board finds that the application passes the standards set forth in New York State Town Law and the Town Code. Therefore, for the aforementioned reasons stated herein, this board grants relief from the following provisions of the Town Code. 1. For a proposed swimming pool, relief from Town Code 330-34, Business Table of Dimensional Regulations, for an accessory distance from street front yard setback of 31 feet where 60 feet is required, and Town Code 330-76D, placement of accessory building structures and uses in all districts, and 330-83C yards, to allow the proposed swimming pool to be located within the minimum required side yard of the principal building. 2, for an existing wood deck on the south/east side of the property, relief from Town Code 330-76D and Town Code 330-83C, to allow the deck to remain within the total required side yard. And 3, for an existing deck with steps located on the south/west side of the property, relief from Town Code 330-76D and Town Code 330-83C, to allow the deck to remain within the total required side yard. And Town Code 330-83A4, for a deck greater than 12 inches in height to be located within the required front yard. The grant of the foregoing relief is for structures as shown on the site plan prepared by Tamara L. Stillman of L.K. McLean Associates, last dated February 23, 2023, and is subject to such other conditions and permits as applicant is already required or may otherwise have to acquire the final approval of the subject premises.
Second.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonia. Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. I next have a determination on the matter of the application of Caitlin Velez, Robert Velez, and Eileen O'Keefe for property located at Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-82-161. This application is for property located at 6 Jagger Lane, West Hampton. Applicants seek variances to raise an existing garage and convert it into a cabana/pool house and for a proposed swimming pool on a non-conforming lot. This board finds that the application passes the standards set forth in New York State Town Law and the Town Code. Therefore, and for the aforementioned reasons, this board grants relief from the following provisions of the Town Code. 1. Town Code 330-84D, pyramid height, for a proposed encroachment to the amount of 104 cubic feet for the proposed lifting of a detached garage and the conversion of the garage into an accessory building pool house / cabana. And 2, Town Code 33011, residence districts, table of dimensional regulations for an accessory distance from street setback of 54.9 feet, where 70 feet is required for a proposed swimming pool, as shown on the survey prepared by Pat Secafico of Secafico Land Surveying PC, last dated July 27, 2022, and the plans and elevations prepared by William Frederick Hine, dated August 31st, 2022. This decision is subject to such other conditions and premises applicant is already required or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises.
Second.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonia.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Next, I have a determination on the matter of the application of Peter Castro and Joanna DeMaria for property located at Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-384-236. This application is for property located at 8 Marlin Road, East Quogue. Applicants seek variances to relocate an existing shed on a property burdened by 3 front yards and wetlands, as recommended by the Conservation Board. This application passes the standards set forth in New York State Town Law and the Town Code. Therefore, and for the aforementioned reasons, this board grants relief from the following provisions of the Town Code for the proposed relocation of an existing shed. 1. Town Code 33011, Residential Districts Table of Dimensional Regulations for an accessory side yard setback of 2 feet where 8 feet is required. 2. Town Code 33076D, Placement of Accessory Buildings, Structures, and Uses in All Districts, and Town Code 33083C, Yards, to allow the shed to be placed within the required minimum side yard and total side yard for the principal building. And 3. Town Code 33084D, Pyramid Height, for an encroachment in the amount of 296 cubic feet, as shown on the survey and pyramid sketch prepared by Jeffrey Hatterer of Twin Forks Land Surveying, last revised September 20th, 2022. Grant to the foregoing relief is subject to such other conditions and permits as applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises.
Second.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonia.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. I next have a determination on the matter of the application of Nicholas Howell and Nicola Welch for property located at Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-230-118. This application is for property located at 8 Sagamore Road, Hampton Bays. Applicants request variances in connection with a modest 2-story addition to an existing dwelling. This application passes the standards set forth in New York State Town Law and the Town Code. Therefore, this board grants relief from the following provisions of the Town Code for a proposed 2-story addition. 1. Town Code 33084D, Pyramid Height, for a proposed pyramid encroachment in the amount of 1,920 cubic feet. 2. Town Code 33115D, continuance, for a required side yard setback of 12.9 feet where 16 feet is allowed. And 3. Town Code 33011, Residence Districts Table of Dimensional Regulations, for a front yard setback of 38.9 feet to the house where 60 feet is required. And 2. For an existing patio located within the minimum and total required side yard. I'm sorry. I think I lost track of where I was. Total and minimum side yard. Relief from Town Code 33083C, Yards, and Town Code 33076D, Placement of Accessory Buildings, Structures, and Uses in All Districts. And 3. For a front porch, relief from Town Code 33011 for a front yard setback of 36.1 feet where 60 feet is required. These variances are granted for structures as shown on the survey prepared by Howard Young of Young & Young, last revised January 23rd, 2023, and the floor plans, elevations, and pyramid diagram prepared by Robert Stromsky, dated March 16th, 2023. Grant to the foregoing if subject to such other conditions and permits as applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises.
Second.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonia.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Last one I have is decision on the matter of the application of 103 Co. LLC for property located at Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-2226. This application is for property located at 9 The Bridge, Noyak. Applicant requests a front lot frontage variance from the special exception standards to construct a building to be used with office space and storage in connection with the Richard Avedon Foundation. This application was an unlisted action pursuant to SECRA. This board conducted an uncoordinated review and hereby adopts a negative declaration finding that no significant environmental impacts have been identified. This application passes the standards set forth in New York State Town Law and the Town Code. Therefore, this board grants relief from Town Code 330-146A, philanthropic, fraternal, social, and education, institutional, office, or meeting room, nonprofit, for a front lot frontage of 50.71 feet, where a minimum of 200 feet is required for a proposed building with office space, as shown in the site plan prepared by Vincent Gaudiello, last revised March 13, 2023, and the plans and elevations prepared by Anthony Vermondios, last revised June 12, 2022, received by the Zoning Board of Appeals on March 17, 2023. The grant of the foregoing relief is conditioned upon such other conditions and permits as applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises. Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Motion to close.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.